some other state. And that state did. Their legislature ratified a couple weeks ago, and it got appealed by Republicans. They took it to a federal judge, and the federal judge said, no, you waited too long. And so now they're deciding whether to take it to the Supreme Court or not. I'm pretty sure it's going to end up before the Supreme Court. But this has been going on for a half century.
If I can share the gender gap. I got this article that says it'll take 257 years for women to have all of the same economic opportunities as men, the new study says. And that was from the World Economic Forum that did this thing called the Global Gender Gap Report. And they've done it every year for a while now, and they didn't even bother to do it this year. Apparently I couldn't find it. But as far as last year, that's up from 202 years, the gap was. Now, this is all countries combined, and this is 4 different factors combined, right? But literally, we've gone down 55 years, okay? So the World Economic Forum report 2 years ago was like, yeah, it's going to take 202 years for there to be equality with men and women in the world. And then the next year, they're like, yeah, no, it's going to be 257 years because you all suck so bad. And so, like, I don't know. But on a more positive note, there's this other article that I wanted to just refer people to, and it's about Iceland, because Iceland's number 1. So nowhere in the world, just so you know, everybody, are women equal to men. Nowhere. And Iceland is number 1 in achieving that, and they're 87% of the way there.
Yeah, isn't like Norway number 2 behind them?
Something like that, yeah. So as far as the United States, I know people are wondering, before I just end with the referral to this article, the World Economic Forum report was like 151 years is the gap for the United States. North America. And then, so we have this one here. Okay, so this is by Global Citizens. .org. It says 7, from 2017, the year 2017. So 7 laws that show why Iceland ranks first for gender equality, and then the subtitle is every country should have these feminist laws. Can I say it again?
Sure.
7 laws that show why Iceland ranks first for gender equality.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. It's great to hear from Dee in New Bern, North Carolina. Hey, Dee, what's on your mind?
I think that Donald Trump and his cohort should be tried for all the crimes, the emoluments, the genocide of persons of color, to increase the possibility that they can win because they've killed off part of the competition. And that's what I think, and I'll take the answer offline.
Well, this goes back to April 7th. That's the magic day. April 7th, and a month prior to April 7th, Jared Kushner and his merry band and Mike Pence in the White House were actually, they had the post office get ready to send masks to everybody in America and all this kind of stuff. And then the news came out on April 7th that more black people were dying than white people, and most of the deaths from COVID were happening in blue states. And all of a sudden, the right-wing media and the Trump administration in 1 week did a complete 180. We're not going to do anything about this anymore. That's how bad it is. So I don't think genocide is inappropriate. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Health. More info at teethhealth.com, code TOM. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code TOM. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM.
For our book club today, we're reading Out of the Wreckage, A New Politics for an Age of Crisis by George Monbiot. This is from Chapter 3, Don't Look Back. The political history of the second half of the 20th century could be summarized as the conflict between its two great narratives, neoliberalism and social democracy. Social democracy in this era, whose story I briefly summarized in Chapter 1, acquired much of its power and coherence from the thinking of one remarkable man. Across 4 decades, John Maynard Keynes's work dominated economic thought and practice. During the period the French called the Trente Glorieuses, 1945 to 1975, his prescriptions are widely credited with reviving economies and distributing their benefits. That they remain more or less the only mainstream alternative to neoliberalism today reveals a remarkable stagnation of both thought and ambition. The first and most obvious problem with an attempt to use Keynesian social democracy as a core political narrative is that the story is more than 80 years old. Political stories need to be renewed. If politics does not feel fresh, it struggles to kindle the imaginative excitement from which hope arises. The second problem is that the surviving enthusiasm for Keynes among mainstream parties is highly selective. It has been reduced in most cases to lowering interest rates when economies are sluggish and engaging in tepid counter-cyclical public spending, which means injecting public money into the economy when unemployment is high or recession threatens. Other Keynesian measures, such as raising taxes when an economy grows quickly to dampen the boom-bust cycle, the fixed exchange rate system, capital controls, and a self-balancing global banking system, an international clearing union, all of which Keynes saw as essential complements to these policies, have been discarded and forgotten. Not only does this ensure that the rich old story has been reduced to 2 thin chapters, whose loss of context destroys their narrative power, but the absence of other Keynesian measures, as well as changed global circumstances, weakens the effectiveness of the remaining elements of policy. Let me give you an example. In 2009, in the hope of boosting the economy in the wake of the financial crash, the British government spent £300 million on stimulating sales of new cars. Under its scrappage scheme, if car owners traded in their old vehicles for new ones, the government, with the help of manufacturers, knocked £2,000 off the price. This lavish program was partly justified as an environmental measure, though it was clear from the outset that it would lead to a rise in environmental impacts as the materials and energies used in manufacturing new cars outweigh any likely savings from better fuel economy. Its primary purpose was to boost British car assembly plants and protect the jobs of their workers. But European state aid rules forbade such schemes from discriminating between cars made in Britain and cars made abroad. British car parts assembled only some 15% of the vehicles sold in that country, which meant that 85% of the benefit went to car plants in Germany, Japan, and other manufacturing nations. We could see this spending as foreign aid to some of the world's richest nations. The current pattern of globalization, which developed partly as a result of abandoning the fixed exchange rates and capital controls that Keynes advocated, ensures that this problem is to some extent repeated wherever Keynesian stimulus spending is applied. It might lead to a general, if scarcely detectable, global economic uplift, but the domestic impact will necessarily be weaker than Keynes intended. This issue is compounded by the phenomena of job-free growth, caused in part by the automation now spreading into almost every economic sector. Today, governments pull the starter cord, spending public money and cutting interest rates, that ignited the economy and employment in the past, only to discover that it snaps before the motor fires. Two feeble measures, removed from the rich framework of thought and narrative in which they were once embedded, have little chance of sustaining a political revival. Another issue is that the troubles that beset the Keynesian model in the 1970s have not disappeared. While the oil embargo of '73 was the immediate trigger for the lethal combination of high inflation and high unemployment, called stagflation back then, that Keynesian policies were almost powerless to counteract. Problems with the system had been mounting for years. Falling productivity and rising costs push inflation, wages and prices pursuing each other upwards, were already beginning to erode support for Keynesian economics. Most importantly, perhaps, the program had buckled in response to the political demands of capital. Strong financial regulations and controls on the movement of money began to weaken in the 1950s as governments started to liberalize financial markets. Richard Nixon's decision in '71 to suspend the convertibility of dollars into gold destroyed the system of fixed exchange rates on which much of the success of Keynes's policies depended. The capital controls introduced to prevent financiers and speculators from sucking money out of balanced Keynesian economies collapsed. Today, it's hard to find a mainstream politician in Europe or the Anglophone nations, including those who call themselves Keynesians, prepared to call for their reintroduction. We cannot hope that the strategies deployed by global finance that helped to destroy the efficacy of Keynes's measures in the '70s will be unlearned. If the soft Keynesianism proposed by opponents of neoliberalism is to amount to anything but tinkering, it has to confront a wider set of challenges than most of its advocates have yet been prepared to acknowledge. But perhaps the biggest problem residual Keynesianism confronts in the 21st century is that when it does work, it collides headfirst with the environmental crisis.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, happy Tuesday. And it's just like there's a fire hose, there's all this stuff going on, and it's really worth talking about. America needs a right to vote. We're discovering, is that the right word? I mean, I think it's been obvious all along that while the formal Jim Crow laws that enforced segregation right up until the 1960s, the mid-1960s, are gone, that Jim Crow never really left, and that now Georgia just brought it back in a big way. I'm going to dig into that in just a moment. What's up with Trump? He's telling Republicans to send money to him instead of the GOP. We'll dig into that in about 20 minutes. In our second hour, Karissa Lewis is going to be with us about the topic of the George Floyd murder and the Derek Chauvin trial. That's going to be interesting. In our third hour, and of course, we're going to sprinkle a fair amount of news through all of this, but in our third hour, we're going to get into how how ending the drug war, at least so far, with state-by-state decriminalization and in many cases outright legalization of marijuana, has actually been a really good thing for workers. And I'm not talking about people working in the marijuana industry. This is a really surprising piece of science, actually. And it has huge political and cultural implications. We'll get into all those today in the program. But I want to start out with basically my rant for the day, and that is that this week Georgia has now passed. I don't believe the governor has signed them yet, but these two pieces of legislation that would end automatic voter registration in the state, would ban drop boxes for absentee ballots, would radically cut back mail-in voting, and there's an amazing piece to this, and would make illegal the whole souls to the polls thing on some Sundays. This is where African Americans are 10 times more likely to vote than white people on Sundays because going after church and all this kind of stuff. Oh, the Georgia legislature just outlawed that. And Georgia is not unique in this, by the way. There are over 200 pieces of legislation in 40 states to do this kind of thing, to make it harder to vote, to restrict voting. The governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, just signed a piece of legislation. I mean, now that's law. Taking in Iowa, it used to be there was 40 days of early voting, and then the Republicans a couple of years back cut that down to 29 days. Now they've cut it down to 20 days, and they're putting all kinds of additional restrictions on, as well as restricting mail-in voting. It's like we need a right to vote. We need an absolute right to vote, and we don't have one in the United States. And that's why these states can get away with this kind of stuff. This is a legacy of slavery and misogyny at the very beginning. They didn't want to say all men have a right to vote because that would have included black men. They didn't want to say all people because that would have included women. And so there just was never a right to vote in our Constitution. It was always a privilege, and it was left up to the states. And look at what the red states are doing. We're going to force, down in Georgia, we're going to force people to stand in line for literally 11 hours if they want to vote. Oh, and if somebody wants to bring you a bottle of water or a slice of pizza, they go to prison. That's also in this new legislation. Because we don't have a right to vote, we've had 30 million registered voters removed from the voting rolls since 2014. And so when people show up in red states and they're not on the voting rolls, they're given a provisional ballot, which is only counted if there's a lawsuit. Because we don't have a right to vote, back in the 60s, William Rehnquist was able to organize Operation Eagle Eye in Arizona, where he, a big bear of a guy, a lawyer, he and other white guys, sometimes uniformed white guys, they drew heavily from local sheriff's offices, would go to the polls, polling places around Phoenix that were largely black, Hispanic, or Native American, and loudly challenge their right to vote, scare people away. Because we don't have a right to vote, Florida's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, was able to prevent almost 1 million Floridians from voting because they owed fines to the government. Haven't paid your parking tickets? You're in big trouble. Because we don't have a right to vote, Louis DeJoy could destroy the post office just in time for Election Day and not suffer any consequences. It wasn't against the law. Because we don't have a right to vote, back in 2000, Jeb Bush, governor of Florida, was able to get a felon list from Texas from his brother, Texas Governor George W. Bush, and use that felon list to compare with the voting list in Florida, knowing that African-American names are a much smaller name pool than white names, who, white people in America draw from all kinds of different language groups across Europe. The Cyrillic languages, the Russian and the Slavic languages, and Polish and Greek and Spanish and German and all that kind of stuff. Whereas most African-American names in the United States tend to come from either they follow the names of American presidents, or they follow the names of English, Scotch, or Irish immigrants to the United States, who were slaveholders back in the day. So, if you take a list of Texas felons, about half of whom are black or Hispanic, if you take a list of Texas felons and compare it with a list of Florida voters, you're going to identify, and in this case, Jeb Bush did, 90,000 African Americans in Florida. They knocked them off the voting rolls so that George W. Bush could, quote, win Florida by 537 votes. Because we don't have a right to vote, Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, wanted to throw people off if they hadn't voted in the previous election. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, fine, go ahead, no problem. Especially if they didn't mail back a postcard. Because we don't have a right to vote, Republicans in red states are pushing through legislation that says that, if you don't get an ID that isn't one that you would normally use, you can't vote. I mean, this is how crazy it gets. David Sirota over at, Judd Legum over at popular.info laid out the whole thing with Georgia here. This is amazing. In the Atlanta Constitution, Journal-Constitution, they noted that Governor Sonny Perdue, this is back in 2005, April 23rd, 2005, 16 years ago, Governor Sonny Perdue, Republican, signed into law a bill that would allow people to vote absentee without an excuse and without ID. Political observers, I'm quoting the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, political observers say Republicans tend to benefit the most from absentee balloting. And for 15 years, that was true, notes Judd over at popular.info. Then in the 2020 presidential election, everything changed. Although white voters still made up a majority of male voters, reports the ACJ, their share of the vote by mail electorate dropped from 67% in 2016 to 54% in 2020. The black share, meanwhile, surged from 23 to 31%. Nearly a third of black voters cast their ballots by mail in 2020. Only 24% of white people. So, yesterday the Georgia Senate passed an end to no excuse absentee voting, 29 to 20 on a party line vote. Now, if you live in Georgia and you want to vote by mail, you must be in the military, you must be observing a religious holiday, you must be caring for some, and I don't know of any religious holidays on a Tuesday, you must be caring for someone with a disability, or you must be required to work, quote, for the protection of the health, life, or safety of the public during the entire time the polls are open. Also, you have to include your a photostat of your ID, like, yeah, a lot of people have copy machines at home, right? Republicans back 16 years ago argued that that voting by mail was safer because it produced a paper trail. That literally was the argument that they used. Now they're saying, no, it's not safe anymore. Not safe. Black people are doing it. I mean, we need a right to vote in America.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
If they want to take away your home or your gun, they got to go to court. If they want to take away your vote, they just do it. We need a right to vote in America. And welcome back. Jared in Downington, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, what's up?
Well, you talk a lot about, we need a right to vote, Tom, and we do. Every single person in this country needs to have a representative voice in democracy. The problem is the so-called Democratic Party does not want everybody to right.
Don't even try, Jared. And they just passed H.R. 1. Have you even bothered to look at it?
Oh, and what about the Senate with the filibuster? And when it gets there, what about...
it's not the Democratic Party is not opposed to ending the filibuster. You've got about somewhere between 6 and 10 Democratic senators who are opposed to ending the filibuster. You've got far more than that who are in favor of ending the filibuster. And then you've got, I think, 13 or 14 Democratic senators that we don't know what their opinion is.
So why haven't they done it yet? Or why haven't they made an exception and said, look, we're going to end the filibuster for voting rights, and we're going to do it now, and I just want to get rid of the filibuster all the way, but why haven't they done it yet? What's going on here? Like, why haven't Biden...
Because this is politics. And in politics, you can't do things until you have a substantial base of public support. And so my prediction, Jared, of what's going to happen is that when H.R. 1 comes up for consideration in the Senate, when Chuck Schumer finally drops that bill, which will probably be next week, you're going to see a Republican or multiple Republicans filibuster it. And at that point, the doo-doo is going to hit the fan, as they say. And that's going to stir that public debate that is going to provide the Democrats with the space to do away with or change the filibuster. My prediction is they're going to say, okay, fine, we'll keep the filibuster, but you've got to have 40 people sitting. This is what I suggested last week. You've got to have your 40 people sitting in the Senate, all the time, And somebody has to be continuously talking. And when the talking ends, or the 39th or the 40th person leaves and there's only 39 people in there, then we hold a vote and we either pass or fail the legislation. Let's go to a Jimmy Stewart filibuster. It's quite clear to me, Jared, that that's the Democrats' strategy. And it's not just clear to me. I mean, read half a dozen op-eds in the New York Times and the Washington Post in the last week saying the same thing.
Well, I mean, I hope you're right, and I do want them to pass things. I really do. I wanted there to be like almost like a coup when they got in, and just like pass everything, pass like so much legislation, it would just overwhelm the system. And because we have to do something about voting rights. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, Republicans in Georgia. I mean, why isn't Biden, just like having the DOJ go down there and just arrest these people for doing this kind of stuff? This is illegal.
Well, because what they haven't done is not illegal yet. But H.R. 1 would make a lot of what they just passed illegal. It would overrule it. It would override it. And that's why H.R. 1 is a big deal. H.R. 1 sets national standards for voting. It sets national standards for early voting. It would undo the Republicans' effort in Georgia to outlaw souls to the polls, for example. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in H.R. 1. Jared, just keep in mind, the number 1 message that was delivered in the 2016 election from Russian trolls, and apparently trolls from several other countries, but we've got the documentation on the Russian trolls, to American voters was, there's no difference between the Republican and Democratic Party. There is, in fact, a huge difference. Jared, thank you for the call. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So we've got a new video up over at ThomHartmann.com for folks who are supporting the program about how big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies, might be the lever that the healthcare industry uses to destroy Medicare for all, or even a public option as we move into and toward the Biden administration. And how do they do that? Well, they're spending $30 billion a year on advertising. The United States is the only country in the world, the only developed country in the world, that allows drug companies to advertise with very, very few restrictions on television. Only one other country, New Zealand, allows any kind of drug advertising on television. But in the United States, the door is largely wide open. And as a result, all of the television networks are hooked on money from big pharma and big health, as it were. You can check out all the details over at ThomHartmann.com with our new video for the supporters of our program. Thank you. Welcome back. So, number one, I think it's fairly obvious we need an absolute affirmative right to vote. And I think that H.R. 1 is a huge step in that direction, although I'd like to see it taken even a step beyond that and go to a constitutional amendment. Just lay it out. So if you have thoughts on that, I think that there's probably a consensus right across the board that we all agree on this. And the one last question that I would add with regard to this is the Republicans are engaging in a huge experiment here. I mean, they're making it harder to vote. And yeah, for people, traditionally the way this is played out, I used to live, Louise and I lived in Georgia for 13 years. And we lived in Cobb County, and then in Marietta, and then we moved to Roswell, which is a little farther north, which I think is still in Cobb County. I don't recall. But I know when we lived in Marietta, our federal representative was Newt Gingrich. I remember that well. And having lived there, I was living in a white neighborhood, largely white neighborhood, and I never had to wait more than 10 minutes to vote. I'm not sure I ever had to wait more than 5 minutes to vote. I know I've been saying for years 15 minutes, but I mean, literally my whole entire life. And yet there were parts, I mean, you just drive 10 miles down the road into Atlanta or into the black parts of Cobb County, of Marietta, where I lived, and you could wait 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours to vote. So this is traditionally how Republicans have gamed the system, and now they're making it illegal to even bring water or pizza to somebody standing in a 10-hour line to vote. They just, this is part of the legislation that they just passed. So here's the question. If their efforts to make it harder to vote also make it harder for white people to vote, which I'm guessing they're fairly carefully calibrated to try not to do that by having more voting machines in the white suburbs and fewer voting machines in black neighborhoods, which is how they've always done it. But if H.R. 1 passes, they can't do that anymore. H.R. 1 requires the same number, the voting machines be allocated based on population, not based on race, essentially, which is how the Republican Party has been doing it all over the country for, ever. So is it possible that these laws are actually going to blow up in their face, that they're going to backfire on them? So number one. Number two, Donald Trump, this is fascinating. Last week, you'll recall, Donald Trump sent a cease and desist, a lawyer letter, to the RNC, the Republican National Committee, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the NRSC, and the National Republican Congressional Committee, the NRCC, telling them that they may no longer use his name or his image in any kind of fundraising. Now he has doubled down. He just, last night, he sent out his equivalent of a tweet. It's a statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. In other words, he's not even identifying himself as the ex-president, right? Here's what he said. No more money for rhinos. They do nothing but hurt the Republican Party and our great voting base. They will never lead us to greatness. Send your donation to Save America PAC at donaldjtrump.com. We will bring it all back together stronger, and we will bring it all back stronger than ever before. So now he is saying, send your money to me instead of Republicans. Maggie Haberman, the reporter at the New York Times, she says, Trump is trying to set himself up as the place where money for Republicans should go. Rick Hasson, he's an election law expert, he pointed out on Twitter, he said, and also to personally enrich himself through very loose requirements for spending that apply to leadership PACs. And these leadership PACs, yes, you can use that money yourself. You can keep that money. You can pay your buddies, you can pay your employees with that money. Trump has, as far as we know, he has raised $31 million so far for his leadership PAC, in addition to the $300 million that he's raised since he lost the election for his other PACs. I mean, this is pretty mind-boggling. Do you think he's going to get away with it? How will the Republican Party survive this? I mean, essentially, the choice that the Republican Party has right now, if they let Trump get away with this stuff, is either the party becomes, as large parts of it already have, but either the party essentially officially becomes a cult-worshiping group centered on the personality, image, and name of Donald J. Trump, or they say, sorry, Donald, see you later, sayonara, and go back to being just the party of billionaires and big business, as they were before Trump. And I don't know how this is going to play out. Perhaps you have some insights into it. My guess is that this is going to fracture the party, even worse than it is already. That this is probably going to speed up the number of Republicans who are starting to step away from Trump rather than speed up the embrace of him. But we'll see. We'll be back with your calls after the break.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And we have to keep in mind, and I'll go through this in just very short form after the break, just exactly how Trump's presidency played out. It's that time of the year again. Free Speech TV needs your help to continue broadcasting. And so please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is a really important part of the American media landscape. You're not going to find good progressive television pretty much anywhere else. You might find one or two shows here and there on other networks, but here we have an entire network of good, solid, progressive programming from hard news, as Amy Goodman presents, and also Randy Rhodes and a lot of the other programs present, here's the details, here's the facts. I try to do that as well, although, not with the depth of reporting that you see over on Democracy Now! To issues of the day, there's a number of great programs on Free Speech TV that delve into specific issues and that have a specific focus. To opinion, which is, kind of my realm, which is, okay, here's the news and here's why it's important. Here's what I think about it. Here's what other people are saying about it. Here's how it impacts our lives. And by the way, what's your opinion of it? Give us a call. I mean, that's essentially my program. And so there's this whole spectrum of programming on Free Speech TV that, generally speaking, you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, we've got the call-in, the kind of cool call-in stuff that you see on C-SPAN. We've got the opinion shows that you'll see on other networks, only with a solid progressive point of view rather than the friendly corporatist. It's okay for General Electric kind of thing, and solid news, all right here. That's worth something, isn't it? Isn't that worth supporting? I think it is. I've been supporting Free Speech TV for years. I think you should too. We provided this program, our program, for free to Free Speech TV for years too. I mean, this is such an important network. Okay, this is also the Grow Free Speech TV week. And one of the things that we're really trying to do here on the network, or I shouldn't say we, because I provide a program to Free Speech TV, but I don't work for the network. I'm not employed by them. But the folks who do work for the network, or who are the network, they're the heart and soul of it. One of their missions, one of their absolute goals, and I'm so pleased to hear it, is to expand the number of viewers. And the first and most straightforward and frankly easiest way to do that is to have the viewers that we have right now, which is you, reach out to your network of friends and family and acquaintances and people who may just randomly read your social media posts and tell them about Free Speech TV. Point them to freespeech.org, because on that website, people will find where they can find all the rest of Free Speech TV. So it's Grow Free Speech TV week, and you are now designated as Free Speech TV's official publicist. Please help out. With a contribution today, with a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower seed pack. With a $50 gift, there's the webcam cover or the a new tote bag. With the $75 gift, you get your choice between the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV logoed face masks. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box. This is new. We've never offered this before, and it's just perfectly timed for the spring. It's a wildflower seed pack, a windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and a pair of Free Speech TV logo glasses, sunglasses. Sweet, huh? Or, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt. Summer is coming, and if you're committed to being an evangelist for Free Speech TV, this is a great tool. It turns you into a billboard for Free Speech TV. I realize, not everybody wants to do that, but there are folks who like to do that, who like, and hopefully you're one of them, who would like to be, you're in the park and somebody comes up and says, okay, well, tell me about Free Speech TV. And of course, with a $120 gift, you can get an autographed copy of my book, my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, which is, I think, one of the most important books I've written. With a $240 gift, you can join us for a meet and greet with Thom. With or you can get the 2-book set, The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. All of the books, all the Thom Hartmann books that we offer here are autographed by the author. That would be me. And with a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box Set, the Thom Hartmann bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the Free Speech TV hat, the sunglasses, and my book on the hidden history of American oligarchy. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to resume these this fall. There's the in-person meet and greet, and so, get in line. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Come on, this network has to have some value to you, right? $5 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. It has to have some value. Please call now and become a contributor if you never have, and make those monthly contributions if you can. Thank you. This week on The Science Revolution is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's here about his new book, Cosmic Queries, Star Talk's guide to who we are, how we got here, and where we're going. We'll be talking about what is life on Earth and in the universe? How did the universe get to be this way and not some other way? What is the universe made of? Plus, we get into how will the Earth end? Doomsday volcanoes, meteors, the death of the sun, and the collision of galaxies? So tune in for this in-depth conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson on The Science Revolution, wherever fine podcasts are available. So just a couple of bullet points here before I pick up your phone calls, and you may want to comment on any of these things. Number one, as a great thread, Laura, pour me a drink over at DU, as Donald Trump, as president, directly and indirectly caused 500,000 American deaths, broke records for job loss and national debt, impeached twice, the first time in history, tried to bribe a foreign government, to encourage violent followers to attack the Capitol, and 5 people died, lost the House for the Republican Party, lost the Senate for the Republican Party, lost the White House for the Republican Party, and this is the guy who is claiming that now all the money should go to him instead of to the Republican Party, and the Republicans are going to be okay with this? Which raises a whole nother question, which Media Matters is pointing out over at MediaMatters.org, which is that the Fox News is all over the idea that, well, maybe these vaccines aren't so great after all. Which is kind of weird. I got a text message yesterday from a friend of mine who's a right-wing commentator, a guy, he's been on my show a number of times. And he was like, talking about, well, that Operation Warp Speed sure did work out well, right? Like Trump is taking credit. It was in the context of something else. He was asking a question about, somebody's contact information, and then he kind of threw that in, and I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, they know how to write a check. I thought Dolly Parton and a Turkish couple who lived in Germany were responsible for the vaccine, but what do I know? But in any case, over at Fox, and so you would think that Trump followers would want Trump to take credit for the success of these vaccines, but no. Media Matters is pointing out that Sean Hannity told his audience he's, quote, beginning to have doubts about whether he'll get vaccinated. Laura Ingraham interviewed a notorious anti-vaxxer on her podcast last week. Tucker Carlson's, I'm quoting from MediaMatters.org, Tucker Carlson's Monday monologue was a rant about how experts are, quote, clearly lying, end quote, about COVID-19 vaccines, and that their safety and efficacy are open questions that, quote, you're not allowed to ask. Really? And what's the result of this? The result of this is that when they ask Democrats, are you going to get vaccinated if a vaccine's available? Only 5% of Democrats say no. When they ask Republicans if you're going to get vaccinated when a vaccine becomes available, 40% say no. Everybody's talking about, vaccine reluctance in the black community. It's not the black community. It's the Republicans who are getting skitsy about taking the vaccine. Why? Well, it could have something to do with Donald Trump hiding the fact that he and Melania got their vaccine shots at the White House and never told anybody about it. They're still trying to keep it a secret and keep it out of the news. He will not discuss it. So what's the deal? I mean, in Putnam County, Missouri, this is one of the stories. Mark Sumner is writing about this over at Daily Kos. He says, in Putnam County, Missouri, where a vaccine event saw 1,500 doses of vaccine go unused and 150 get thrown away, it was a county that voted 84% for Trump. As KSKD reports, more vaccine is finally being shifted to St. Louis and Kansas City. We do recognize, this is the governor, Mike Parsons, the Republican governor of Missouri. He says, we do recognize that some Missourians are less interested in receiving a vaccine than others. Vaccine interest is often highest in urban populations. Right. So let me add to this question about, how are the Republicans going to respond to Trump trying to take over their party and trying to take all the money from their party? The kind of follow-on question, what happens when the Republican Party starts dying out in droves? Keep in mind, it was April 7th was when, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, CBS, and NBC, all on April 7th of last year, all of them reported on the same day this huge study that showed that at that point in time, on April 7th, black people and Hispanic people, but particularly black people, were more likely to get coronavirus because so many more of them, as a proportion of their population, were frontline workers, and were more likely to die from it. And that was the point. That week, literally that week, the 7 days following April 7th. And I've written about this, and it's got all the links to everything, to Limbaugh and everybody else. In that 1 week, the entire right wing did a screeching U-turn. Keep in mind, it was just 5 weeks earlier that Trump had declared a shutdown nationwide. They did this screeching U-turn to say, oh, we don't need a shutdown. We don't need a stinking shutdown. And that was the point at which Donald Trump started minimizing the virus and saying, oh, it's just like a miracle. It's going to vanish, and don't worry, and everything's going to be fine, and you just need to get back to work. Right. So where is this going to go? Linda in Eastern Pennsylvania. Hey, Linda, what's on your mind?
The financing with the Trumps, they finally found a slush fund that has no end.
Yeah. Well, now, Louise and I have a... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, they couldn't have the foundation anymore because they ran that illegally. So now they found a way to just get money and not work.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Louise and I have a difference of opinion about this. Louise thinks that Trump is interested in power. I'm of the opinion that he's really only interested in money. I think that the work that goes along with having power is something that Donald Trump isn't interested in. He just wants to be rich. He's essentially a deeply and profoundly lazy man, and would much rather play golf than do anything else. And so this is just all a scam to make money. I think he ran originally, well, we know he, in his primary run in the Republican Party, that was a scam to make money, to squeeze more cash out of General Electric, NBC. And then, he bragged about how he'd be the first president to make money on the presidency. He is. He bragged about how, all this. I think it's all about the money. Louise thinks he's still into the power. I think he only wants to use the power to protect himself from prosecution. But I guess that could argue that he's in for the power, too. What say you, Linda?
I think that the power just comes along with him getting all the money. Like the power feels good, but the money's what he wants.
Yeah, it's hard to disentangle the two, but I think you've nailed it. Thank you, Linda. Great to hear from you. Shelby in Albany, Georgia. Hey, Shelby, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Good afternoon to you. I was calling because I wanted to talk about, I've been reading some exit and demographic reports coming out of Georgia, with Georgia being on the hot seat at the passage of these Jim Crow-style voter suppression laws that are coming out of there. I wanted to talk about, wanted you to expand, see what you thought about this context that we went, in Georgia, where Georgia has a combination of a majority of Asian, Hispanic, and black vote that now is really the majority vote in the 5 boroughs, but 10 counties really that surround all the way down to Fayette, which is Fayette is just just south of the first county north of Macon, Tom, and the further south of the airport in terms of the kind of exurbs where the pilots, the suburbia that is created into the exurbs there in the Atlanta down from the airport south. So we have, I was looking at some data that Stacey Abrams' group actually with this lobby that we're doing up in Georgia sent out so that we can see exactly what happened where you have a white flight. Remember, Lucy McBeth won Newt Gingrich's seat, 16 points. That seat had been in Republicans' hands for 30 years.
Yep.
So you've got now Gwinnett County, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, Marietta, 5 counties of the 10 counties, as I shared, that go down to Fayette, McDonough, Henry, Clayton on the southeast of the Fulton perimeter. Those counties now have 30% Black, 20% Hispanic, and 13 to 15% Asian, right?
Which is more than 50%, right?
Yeah, that's that majority that now produced that blue turn, because Stacey Abrams actually got statewide 47%, whereby Joe Biden got 49%. He increased on Stacey's total vote share in Georgia. Yeah. And so this appeal of where Georgia was a white flight example of Georgia, because as you know, Georgia has Atlanta as really the only urban core in that state.
Yeah. Shelby, we just have 15 seconds to a hard break. What's the point you're making?
I think that this mantra that the national media projects that we're in trouble is simply a signaling that they're not using their work. They're not doing any work to really reflect the emerging coalition that exists in America. And we just have to keep fighting. We're going to put pressure on the corporate and the places of business as to whether or not they will support this suppression.
I've got it. I got it. Brilliant. Shelby, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
45 minutes past the hour. Back with your calls in just a moment. What's the fate and future of the GOP? And welcome back. Kevin in San Pedro, California. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, in the book, Democracy in Chains by Dancy McClain, she talked about how the pardon?
I just said yes. I acknowledge what you said.
I'm sorry. She talked about how the Koch brothers have a bigger political party than the Republicans or operatives, and that they see taxation as a way of theft. So when you talked about the constitutional amendment to get the votings passed, this is the problem, is it takes 2/3 of the states to ratify that. And right now, 2/3 of the states almost are in Republican hands. So
I believe it's actually 3/4 of the states. It's 2/3 of the House and Senate and 3/4 of the states. But I get your point, Kevin.
So this is why H.R. 1 is so important, because if we get them to that 3/4, we're in a lot of trouble. They will start passing a whole lot of constitutional amendments that are going to favor more and more the rich.
Oh, they're trying to rewrite the Constitution, Kevin. There's a whole movement that has been funded by these right-wing billionaires. They've had dress rehearsals for this every year for the last 6 or 7 years in Washington, D.C., where they bring in people from all over the country. They just need, again, they need 2/3 of the House and Senate and 3/4 of the states in order to call a constitutional convention and literally take the entire Constitution apart and rewrite it however they want. And they fully intend to do that. They know what they're doing and they know what they want to do. And that's one of the major focuses of this You know, what Nancy McLean correctly points out, and Jane Mayer makes the same point in her book, Dark Money, that, you know, there are actually more people working for these right-wing billionaire-funded networks than there are within the Republican Party, and there's more money in those networks than within the Republican Party. And this is one of the schisms that isn't being discussed, by the way, Kevin, is how that network so far has been dancing 100% to the tune of Donald Trump. You just go to FreedomWorks website and you'll see what I'm talking about. And in fact, it's not a bad idea to get on their email list so you can see what they're up to. It's pretty surprising, frankly. But this is the direction that they're going to go. And at what point? What's it going to take for the billionaires to say, okay, Donald Trump is no longer our guy. He's no longer helpful to us.
And then remember this, the reason they want to get rid of those 501c3s for churches is so that they can run unlimited dark money through those churches.
Right. Yeah. Well, you've got now churches setting up 501c4s that are, you know, essentially political action committees where people can donate to those instead of the church. You've got, I mean, all of these loopholes that the Supreme Court opened up with Citizens United and the two decisions prior to that, and McCutcheon since then, have just horribly corrupted our politics. But you're absolutely right, Kevin. This, you know, there's a long game here that these billionaires, these right-wing billionaires, have been playing for some time, which is rewrite the Constitution, end democracy in the United States, turn America formally and officially into essentially a white supremacist oligarchy. And, you know, they've already done that in a number of states, in my opinion. Kevin, thank you for the call. And thanks for listening to KPFK. We'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. Stick around. You can help America return to democracy by telling friends and family how to listen to this and other great progressive programs. Tag You're It. So people wonder, why militias all of a sudden? How is it that all kinds of Americans are showing up with assault weapons in the Capitol building trying to assassinate the Vice President of the United States and the Speaker of the House of Representatives and stop the counting of the presidential votes, the Electoral College votes? Where did this come from? You know, the last time we saw an armed uprising against the federal government in the United States was 1861. It was the Confederacy. Is this a Confederacy rising again? Well, yeah, there is a huge white supremacist element to it. In fact, I'd say it's one of the primary animating impulses. But what really got these things going, these militias going, was the Heller decision written by the opinion written by Antonin Scalia and published on June 26, 2008. And it has crazy language in it, basically begging for militias. I share it with you in a special video over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Ronnie in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Hey, Ronnie, what's on your mind today?
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. Something that you were just saying punched me in the guts, but also turned on a light. I'm fortunate enough to be able to see my mom every Sunday because I meet her at church. And so a couple of times I have asked her about getting vaccinated, and she's always like, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I was lucky enough to just get my first shot this past week. So I told her that. And one of the other pastors came over and he said, I got my shot too. We're all fully vaccinated here, all the pastors. And I said, that's fantastic. And he said, Eunice, are you going to get vaccinated? And she's like, no, absolutely not. And it's because she doesn't trust the government. And I'm like, what? And she goes, nope, it's too fast. I don't trust the government. I said, it's science, Mom. It's medicine. And she said, I don't trust them either. And now that you said that Fox News is doing this, she is a total Fox Newser. And it makes me really sad.
my.
You know, she had said, I'm 86, you know, if I'm going to die, you know, I've had a good life. And I go, but if you die of COVID, it's a really horrible death. And she just shrugged her shoulders. And I've hated Fox News forever, but I really, I tell you,
It sounds
it's
like
really hard.
it sounds like they're on the verge of killing your mother, Ronnie.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, a lot of my family feels the same way because they're all Fox people, too. I'm the only lefty in my family.
Yeah, I get it.
But
Ronnie,
I didn't know that Fox was doing that, so thank you for enlightening me. At least it tells me why she's thinking that.
Yeah, I totally get it. Ronnie, thank you. I wish you the very best, and your mother, too. It's such a sad story. Nick in Nashville, Tennessee, it says here you disagree with me. You go to the front of the line. Nick, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Trump is in it for the money. What other president do you know that's lost $2.1 or $2.2 billion off their net worth over the course of being in the presidency versus Obama, who gained 30 times his net worth when he took presidency? They're worth $1.1
Well, yeah, Obama had a
best-selling,
two best-selling. Let me go ahead, Nick. Finish your thought.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, Obama had a couple of best-selling books, and he made a few million bucks. I'll give you that. I didn't know that Donald Trump had any provable net worth. I mean, the stuff that I've seen from the New York Times, from David K. Johnston, and the leaked but verified Trump tax returns indicate that Donald Trump, when he ran for president, owed more money than he had in assets, that he was actually broke. What do you know that I don't?
CNN, you can Google it. CNN ran a story. His net worth prior to taking office was, well, technically it's 2016, so I don't know if it was before office, but his first year in office was 3.5. 2015 was 4.5. And then on the article from CNN, who's not going to do anything pro-Trump, says he's down to 2.5 now.
Well, they're reporting what he is claiming then, because I can't imagine that CNN or any other news source would try to report what Trump's actually worth when Trump doesn't allow that data to be made public. It's therefore not possible to report on anything other than what Trump is saying. So if he's crying in his beer and saying that he's losing money, you know, okay. How did he lose that money? I mean, he's funneling people into his hotels. He's raised, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars that he's keeping in his own pocket here from you know, the suckers who follow him. I get it that, you know, across the hotel business, people are losing money, and he probably has lost a fair amount of money on that. But what does that have to do with, quote, serving the country? That's the result of the coronavirus. That's got nothing to do with his, you know, his playing golf two out of 3 days that he was in the White House.
That was as of 2019, not 2020. But regardless, what other president in history do you know that did it without a presidential salary? Who did it and donated 100% of his salary? If he didn't, why would he do that?
We've not seen any receipts for those donations, Nick. Have you?
Oh, I have not. No,
I'm serious.
I don't have personal contact.
To the best of my knowledge, you know, that was a lot of talk. Unless he gave it to the Trump Foundation, but he had to shut that down because they were convicted of fraud, and all 3 of his children had to go to classes about how to run a nonprofit without committing fraud in exchange for not going to jail.
All I'm trying to say is there are multiple politicians who gain net worth by going into office.
Oh, I agree. Mitch McConnell's worth $25 million right now, and he was only worth $2 million 10 years ago. What's going on with that? His salary is $174,000 a year. I'm with you.
And it is across the board.
It should not happen.
It is not one side or the other. That's why. I mean, obviously, I'm a conservative.
Well, I'll give you, Nick. There are some Democrats who have enriched themselves with public service. Absolutely.
Right.
It seems like, though, Republicans actually celebrate it. You know, yeah, rich guy. It's a great thing. Anyway, Nick, thank you for the call, and thanks for a civil conversation. I appreciate that. You know, every now and then somebody wants to disagree with me, they just go off and start swearing and stuff, and then I end up having to hang up on them and dump what they said. Nick, thank you. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabby.com. Gabby takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabby.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Health. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
It's that time of the year again. Free Speech TV needs your help to continue broadcasting. And so please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is a really important part of the American media landscape. You're not going to find good progressive television pretty much anywhere else. You might find one or two shows here and there on other networks, but here we have an entire network of good, solid, progressive programming from hard news, as Amy Goodman presents, and also Randy Rhodes and a lot of the other programs present, here's the details, here's the facts. I try to do that as well, although, not with the depth of reporting that you see over on Democracy Now! To issues of the day, there's a number of great programs on Free Speech TV that delve into specific issues and that have a specific focus, to opinion, which is, kind of my realm, which is, okay, here's the news and here's why it's important. Here's what I think about it. Here's what other people are saying about it. Here's how it impacts our lives. And by the way, what's your opinion of it? Give us a call. I mean, that's essentially my program. And so there's this whole spectrum of programming on Free Speech TV that, generally speaking, you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, we've got the call-in, the kind of cool call-in stuff that you see on C-SPAN. We've got the opinion shows that you'll see on other networks, only with a solid progressive point of view rather than, the friendly corporatist, it's okay for General Electric kind of thing. And solid news, all right here. That's worth something, isn't it? Isn't that worth supporting? I think it is. I've been supporting Free Speech TV for years. I think you should too. We provided this program, our program, for free Speech TV for years too. I mean, this is such an important network. Okay, this is also the Grow Free Speech TV week. And one of the things that we're really trying to do here on the network, or I shouldn't say we, because I provide a program to Free Speech TV, but I don't work for the network. I'm not employed by them. But the folks who do work for the network, or who are the network, they're the heart and soul of it. One of their missions, one of their absolute goals, and I'm so pleased to hear it, is to expand the number of viewers. And the first and most straightforward and frankly easiest way to do that is to have the viewers that we have right now, which is you, reach out to your network of friends and family and acquaintances and people who may just randomly read your social media posts and tell them about Free Speech TV. point them to freespeech.org, because on that website, people will find where they can find all the rest of Free Speech TV. So it's Grow Free Speech TV Week, and you are now designated as Free Speech TV's official publicist. Please help out. With a contribution today, with a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, there's the webcam cover or the new tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get your choice between the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV logoed face masks. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box. This is new. We've never offered this before, and it's just perfectly timed for the spring. It's a wildflower seed pack, a windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and a pair of Free Speech TV logo sunglasses. Sweet, huh? Or, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt. Summer is coming, and if you're committed to being an evangelist for Free Speech TV, this is a great tool. It turns you into a billboard for Free Speech TV. I realize, not everybody wants to do that, but there are folks who like to do that, who like, and hopefully you're one of them, who would like to be, you're in the park and somebody comes up and says, okay, well, tell me about Free Speech TV. And of course, with a $120 gift, you can get an autographed copy of my book, my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, which is, I think, one of the most important books I've written. With a $240 gift, you can join us for a meet and greet with Tom. Or you can get the 2-book set, The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. All of the books, all the Thom Hartmann books that we offer here are autographed by the author. That would be me. And with a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box Set, the Thom Hartmann bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the Free Speech TV hat, the sunglasses, and my book on the hidden history of American oligarchy. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to resume these this fall. There's the in-person meet and greet, and so, get in line. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Come on, this network has to have some value to you, right? $5 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. It has to have some value. Please call now and become a contributor if you never have, and make those monthly contributions if you can. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's trial for murder, the murder of George Floyd, was supposed to have begun yesterday. There have been some delays, and for this just brutal 8 minutes and 46 seconds that we all watched with horror when the video came out. And so I wanted to get some real up-to-date information. What's going on with this? Karissa Lewis is on the line with us. Karissa is the National Field Director for the Movement for Black Lives. Their website is m4bl.org, m4bl.org, and the Twitter handle is mvmnt4blk lives. And Karissa, welcome to the program. And what's the latest? What's the holdup, and what's the latest news coming out of this trial of this apparently killer police officer?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you. I think the holdup is connected to the process around jury selection, but I'm not fully clear. And, the Movement for Black Lives is an ecosystem made up of over 100 Black-led organizations across the country, including Black Visions Collective that is in Minneapolis. And so as a group that's holding space for local organizations, we're really leaning on our local folks to point us in the direction in terms of how folks respond to this moment.
Right. So, I understand that there's the possibility of adding a third-degree murder charge to his charges, and that was part of what slowed it down, and also, this debate over jury selection. Do you think that that's because they want the jury to have a lesser fallback charge if they can't find him guilty of the most serious charge?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. What I do know is that historically, the same system that is creating the conditions where police officers kill Black people with impunity is the same system that folks are now relying on to provide justice in this moment. And so, I think it's a challenging situation for Black folks to be in, to continue to try and seek support and reprieve in a system that just has consistently caused harm in and of itself.
You mentioned, we're talking with Karissa Lewis, the National Field Director for the Movement for Black Lives. You mentioned that you're coordinating the various organizations with regard to a response to this trial and the broader response to police violence in general. I mean, we saw the murder of George Floyd kick off the largest social justice movement in terms of people in the streets and sustained activity in the history of America. What is your organization's advice, or what are you seeing happening, or what do you think is the best or the least effective ways to message this and to react to this, both by Black organizations, people who are directly affected by this, African Americans, and your allies?
So I know what is paramount for Black folks in this moment is to continue to be a soft landing place for folks who are, one, getting politicized in this moment, and two, suffering from the impacts of this moment. And so I know, for instance, folks in Minneapolis are going to be advancing a series around healing spaces and activities where some of the folks who are harmed by the events of last summer really have a space to come together and to be in community and love up on each other. And so, we're both trying to grapple with, like, what are the real impacts on our folks, and then what are the systemic changes we're trying to seek. And I think it's important to lift up that since May 2020, organizers in over 20 cities have generated hundreds of thousands of emails, testimonies, petition signatures. Folks have secured divestment of over $840 million from police departments, secured at least $160 million in investments in those same communities, and canceled contracts with police in schools, saving an additional $34 million. And so, we are going to continue to advance things like the Breathe Act, which is, model legislation that seeks to do a few things. It seeks to divest federal resources from incarceration and policing and criminal legal system harms, invest in new approaches to community safety, utilizing state incentives, allocate new money to build healthy and sustainable, equitable communities, and hold political leaders accountable and enhance self-determination for Black communities. So, we have a long game, and we're going to continue to stay rooted in that long game of a complete reimagination of public safety. Because what we know is that the overwhelming majority of Black folks don't feel safe when they're, in the presence of police. And so we have to reimagine that system and that institution completely.
Speaking of systemic changes, and specifically in policing and the criminal justice system, and I salute the great work that you all have done in trying to move, and in some cases successfully moving resources, largely financial resources, out of policing and into servicing people and reducing the need for policing. But what are the systemic changes that are at the top of your list? Greater integration of police forces, reduction of the use of SWAT teams, no-knock warrants. I mean, there's this whole spectrum of stuff that I hear about constantly, that we talk about in this program. What do you prioritize? Where do you think we need to be looking and working toward?
So I think each community has identified different priorities for them. We try to create the BREATHE Act in a way that it holds space for all of the different nuances that exist inside of local communities. But I think broadly, folks are trying to shift the scale, size, and scope of policing. And so that looks like demilitarization, that looks like, ending cash money bail. So again, each community has started to think about, in their own context, what are the most elegant next steps in terms of defunding the police.
Yeah, and that phrase, defunding the police, has become highly politicized. Republicans used it in attack ads against Democrats, with some success and with some failures in the last cycle, at least according to the press. Is there a discussion around changing that language, or on the other hand, embracing that language in a way that causes a larger number of people to understand what it actually means?
I think that this is an interesting debate that many folks have been inside of, and I know that folks have even said, oh, the slogan. We're pretty clear that it's not a slogan, but a demand. And that we actually don't, as social movements, have to move to the will of the elected officials. Like they actually have to do the work to understand the shifting in the electorate, and the electorate is shifting. Many of the even Democratic candidates who lost, it was because they did not pick up a progressive agenda. And then we have cases like Cori Bush in St. Louis, where folks are standing pretty firmly on the ideals that are coming out of social movements and are finding great success. So the invitation is for elected officials to really listen to their electorate. Their electorate, in many ways, is still calling for a defunding of the police.
Yeah, amen. And we're hearing that echoing in many places. Karissa Lewis, the National Field Director of the Movement for Black Lives, m4bl.org, the website, and Movement for Black Lives, the Twitter handle. Karissa, thank you so much for dropping by. It's great talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. It's 15 minutes past the hour. We will be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day. Oh, and I've got a response to our caller about how rich Donald Trump is from CNN itself right after this. And welcome back. Let's see here. Jim in Hawthorne, California. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Tom, I got a stone in my shoe. It's anti-vaxxer Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah. I get it, Jim. I had him on my program a couple of times back 4 or 5 years ago, and at that point in time, his sales pitch or his whatever you want to call it, I don't want to characterize it in a negative way, but his routine, his line was, really, we're all in favor of vaccines. We just think that childhood vaccines need to be spaced out more, and we need to get rid of the mercury-based preservatives in them. And I was okay with that. But it has gotten wilder and wilder, and to the point now where his sister wrote an op-ed in, I think it was the Washington Post a couple of months ago, just basically disowning him for just a full-out anti-vax position. And he was a big-time lawyer in the environmental movement for quite some time. I think that they probably disowned him. He was I think he was a lawyer for the Sierra Club, as I recall. But every movement has a few people on its fringe. I mean, it's no movement is pure and homogenous and all good.
We had a lot of people listening to his speech back summer, in I guess it was August. There was like 100,000 people listened to him in Berlin. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was hard. I didn't even know about it until about 2 months later. I guess it wasn't really covered in the media.
Oh, I don't even know about it now. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy went to Germany during the COVID epidemic?
He I guess he was in Germany in August. He gave this speech. There was like 100,000 people. That was a conservative estimate. Why are all those people in Germany listening to a guy that should be thrown out of the left?
Yeah. Well, he may no longer represent the left. I mean, it was when I said that a notorious anti-vaxxer was on Laura Ingram's podcast last week, that notorious anti-vaxxer was Robert Kennedy. So he's doing Fox News, apparently. I just don't know what's going on. I mean, I used to know this guy and respect him tremendously. And I'm baffled by it.
It occurred to me, Tom, that if the right and the left can agree on something, that's power.
Yeah. But agreeing on not getting a vaccine in the middle of a pandemic seems like the wrong thing to agree on.
That seems like it. Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can stipulate that, Jim. We can stipulate that.
All right.
So, but what I find truly shocking is that 5% of Democrats say that they don't trust the vaccine. 40% of Republicans say that they don't. And that in this one example in Missouri, which is the most recent one that is getting a lot of press now, they went into a rural area that was roughly 3/4 Republican votes for Donald Trump in the 2020 election, and they literally couldn't give the vaccine away. There were spoiled, over 150 spoiled cases vaccines, and they when they left, they still had over 1,000 doses that they couldn't give out. And at the same time, in the big cities in Missouri, there's just huge demand. It's just mind-boggling. Jim, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening to us on KPFK. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, exposing the con in conservative. Hey, my new book is out, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Want to know more? The links are all over at thomhartmann.com. Hey, we have a new video for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com. It's about curing type 1 diabetes, which is a pretty amazing thing. Type 1 diabetes is where the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin are actually destroyed. They're gone. Type 1 diabetics, typically it shows up in childhood. And without insulin, people die from it fairly young. With insulin, they can live a good long life. But a University of Alberta researcher, Dr. James Shapiro, back in 1990, pioneered a transplant system. Now, the problem with that was that people had to use immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of their lives because they had just gotten, a partial pancreas transplant from another person. But now he's successfully on mice worked out a way of actually curing type 1 diabetes. We can't do it legally here in the United States, but they're doing it in Canada. It's amazing. You can check it out at thomhartmann.com. So, usually when people call in and cite some statistic or say, I read this on CNN, something like that, I usually, generally speaking, take things at face value. I have found over the years, I've been doing this show since 2003, however many years that is, and that generally speaking, when people call in and they're citing something and they're quite certain of it, they're right. And so I give a lot of deference. That is not always the case, though, when people who call themselves conservatives call in, which is kind of saddening. We had a caller just before the last break who said, Donald Trump, essentially what his message was. He didn't say it in these words, but this is my translation of my understanding of his message. If you think I got it wrong, give me a shout and correct me. But I think essentially what he was saying was Donald Trump became president. He lost money while he was president. As a result of having, and he did that, he was willing to lose money while he was president because he has such love for our country. He's a noble guy. All right, that essentially is what he was saying. And he said, and the proof is over on CNN. And all you have to do is just go to CNN and you can see it. So I went to CNN. I just Googled this, is Donald Trump less rich? And boom, popped right up. It was a piece by Karissa Lewis, the CNN editor-at-large. It was published Wednesday, September 9th last year. And the headline was, Donald Trump is a lot less rich today than when he was elected president. So let me just give you the details on this. This is entirely based on Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine bases their ranking of who are the richest people in America based on best guesses. They have access to no documents. So none of this can be considered true, in quotes, but still. This is what Donald Trump said. He said, whether I lost $2 billion, $5 billion or less, it doesn't make any difference. I don't care. I'm doing this for the country. I'm doing it for the people. That's the quote that it opens with. And Salissa says, thanks to the new Forbes 400 list released Tuesday, Trump is less rich than when he ran for the presidency. So here's what CNN actually said. And this is, again, is according to Forbes. In 2016, Trump was worth $3.7 billion, according to Forbes. That dropped to $3.1 billion in 2017 and held there for 2018 and 2019. In other words, for the first 3 years of his presidency and when he ran, according to Forbes, he was worth about $3 billion. But this year, 2020, keep in mind this was published 2 months ago? No, it was in September, about 5 months ago. But this year, Trump's net worth dropped to $2.5 billion. That $600 million decline led Trump to drop from the 275th richest person in America in 2019 to the 352nd richest in 2020, a drop of 77 points. Why the dip in Trump's fortune? The coronavirus pandemic. This is according to Forbes, which is who is everybody's quoting and who is documenting this, and who Donald Trump himself was quoting. Quote, the value of office buildings, hotels, and resorts have taken a hit among the pandemic. And this was a press release that Forbes released specifically about Donald Trump's wealth. In other words, let me translate that into plain English. If Donald Trump had done what South Korea did, or what Taiwan did, or what New Zealand did, or what Australia did, all countries that got the coronavirus under control very quickly. 10 people have died in Taiwan. Taiwan has 24 million people. 10 people have died in Taiwan in the last year and a half from COVID. 10. The economy is back. The Chinese economy grew 3.5% last year. The Taiwanese economy grew a little over 2% last year. If Donald Trump had done just the basic science, if he had followed the plan that the Obama administration left him, it literally was called the pandemic playbook. If he had followed that, if he had gotten everybody in America to wear a mask, which is what the Taiwanese did, if he had immediately shut down any of the congregate settings, restaurants, places like that where people can get infected, and moved immediately to you got to eat outdoors, if you're going to eat those kinds of things. If he had done the stuff that Taiwan did, that Hong Kong did, that China did, that Australia did, that New Zealand did, he wouldn't have lost all that money. But instead he didn't, because he's too lazy. He played golf 2 out of every 3 days he was president. His daily schedule showed on most days absolutely nothing. He didn't even bother to take national security briefings for 9 out of 10 days throughout his presidency. He did nothing. He basically sat around, had long phone conversations with people. I mean, this guy is chronically lazy. And as a result, 500,000 Americans died. And Donald Trump lost $600 million in the value of his hotels because people aren't going to hotels anymore. And now they're trying to sell some of his properties, and they can't even find buyers. They put the Trump Hotel in D.C. on the market, last year. Nobody wants to buy it, at least at the price they're asking for it. I see a bankruptcy sale in Donald Trump's future. Keep in mind, it was just a few weeks ago that they blew up his old casino. Literally, physically blew it up.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So if our caller is still listening, I hope I answered any questions you may have. We'll be back in just a moment. It's that time of the year again. Free Speech TV needs your help to continue broadcasting. And so please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is a really important part of the American media landscape. You're not going to find good progressive television pretty much anywhere else. You might find one or two shows here and there on other networks, but here we have an entire network of good, solid, progressive programming from hard news, you know, as Amy Goodman presents, and also Randy Rhodes and a lot of the other programs present, you know, here's the details, here's the facts. I try to do that as well, although, you know, not with the depth of reporting that you see over on Democracy Now! To issues of the day, there's a number of great programs on Free Speech TV that delve into specific issues and that have a specific focus. To opinion, which is, you know, kind of my realm, which is, okay, here's the news and here's why it's important. Here's what I think about it. Here's what other people are saying about it. Here's how it impacts our lives. And by the way, what's your opinion of it? Give us a call. I mean, that's essentially my program. And so there's this whole spectrum of programming on Free Speech TV that, generally speaking, you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, you know, we've got the call-in, the kind of cool call-in stuff that you see on C-SPAN. We've got the opinion shows that you'll see on other networks, only with a solid progressive point of view rather than, you know, the friendly corporatist, it's okay for General Electric kind of thing. And solid news, all right here. That's worth something, isn't it? Isn't that worth supporting? I think it is. I've been supporting Free Speech TV for years. I think you should too. We provided this program, our program, for free Speech TV for years too. I mean, this is such an important network. Okay, this is also the Grow Free Speech TV week. And one of the things that we're really trying to do here on the network, or I shouldn't say we, because I'm, you know, I provide a program to Free Speech TV, but I don't work for the network. I'm not employed by them. But the folks who do work for the network, or who are the network, you know, they're the heart and soul of it. One of their missions, one of their absolute goals, and I'm so pleased to hear it, is to expand the number of viewers. And the first and most straightforward and frankly easiest way to do that is to have the viewers that we have right now, which is you, reach out to your network of friends and family and acquaintances and people who may just randomly read your social media posts and tell them about Free Speech TV. Point them to freespeech.org, because on that website people will find where they can find all the rest of Free Speech TV. So it's Grow Free Speech TV week, and you are now designated as Free Speech TV's official publicist. Please help out. With a contribution today, with a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, there's the webcam cover or the a new tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get the choice between the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV logoed face masks. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box. This is new. We've never offered this before, and it's just perfectly timed for the spring. It's a wildflower seed pack, a windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and a pair of Free Speech TV logo glasses, sunglasses. Sweet, huh? Or, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt. Summer is coming, and if you're committed to being an evangelist for Free Speech TV, this is a great tool. It turns you into a billboard for Free Speech TV. I realize, you know, not everybody wants to do that, but there are folks who like to do that, who like, you know, and hopefully you're one of them, who would like to be, you're in the park and somebody comes up and says, okay, well, tell me about Free Speech TV. And of course, with a $120 gift, you can get an autographed copy of my book, my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, which is, I think, one of the most important books I've written. With a $240 gift, you can join us for a meet and greet with Tom. Or you can get the 2-book set, The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. All of the books, all the Thom Hartmann books that we offer here are autographed by the author. That would be me. And with a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box Set, the Thom Hartmann bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the Free Speech TV hat, the sunglasses, and my book on the hidden history of American oligarchy. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to resume these this fall. There's the in-person meet and greet, and so, get in line. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Come on, this network has to have some value to you, right? $5 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. It has to have some value. Please call now and become a contributor if you never have, and make those monthly contributions if you can. Thank you. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. Hey, we just put a new video up for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com, and it's about what would have happened if back in 1941, when we were attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, what would have happened if Franklin Roosevelt had said, well, Hawaii didn't vote for me, and it's only 2,404 dead people. I mean, that's not so many, right? What's the big deal? Or what would have happened if my dad, who, joined the Army to go fight in World War II, if my dad had said, well, it's only 2,400 people, and I live in Michigan, and they're way over in Hawaii. They're never going to get to Michigan. That's the poison that is spreading in America right now, that we really need to take on. And so anyhow, that's the essence of this, the new video that we just put up. You can find it over at thomhartmann.com, and I think you'll find it fascinating. Thank you for your support. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, defending America from the conservative weapons of mass deception. I just have to share this story with you real quick. It is so cool. I tweeted about this yesterday. If you check out my Twitter feed, you can find all the links to it. Zoe Lofgren, the Democrat who represents the 19th District of California in the U.S. House of Representatives, has nailed 120 Republicans in the House. I mean, just nailed them. She compiled the social media posts from these 120 Republicans from Election Day to the end of January, all posts that, quote, are related to the violence on January 6th and claims regarding the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election. And I mean, one of the most shocking is, and she's got this whole database, and you can actually see all the posts. I checked Oregon, and I saw, our one Republican representative, his tweets were offensive but tame. But then I went to Florida and checked Matt Gaetz, and it was like, whoa. And she notes, I mean, her office aggregated this report as evidence for expulsion of each of these 120 members. She's trying to get these 120 Republicans expelled from the U.S. House of Representatives. And it's over, there's an article about it at democracydocket.com. But I just go to Zoe Lofgren's website, which I'm guessing is would be Lofgren, LOFGREN.house.gov. That's 99% of the time, that's the format is, it starts with the name, the last name, LOFGREN.house.gov. And I'm guessing it's right there on her homepage. If you have any trouble finding it, it should be fairly easy to Google or DuckDuckGo. 120 House members share incendiary social media content leading up to Capitol attack is the breaking headline over at democracydocket.com. And of course, as I said, I tweeted the thing out yesterday, and so you can just easily find that and get the link to that. So all that said, let's pick up your phone calls here. Larry in Minneapolis. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I wanted to address the what you mentioned about HR 1. Now, I am counted amongst the percentage of Americans who have a physical or visual impairment. And years ago, when I first started voting, you had to have one of each party election judge help you operate the voting machine. Now, in the last decade or so, we have enjoyed, at least here in the Minnesota area, having a device that actually can enlarge or read the ballot to you, and you can fill it out yourself. You don't have to rely on any one individual. But there is also a technical development going on where a person who can request a absentee ballot if they don't feel comfortable in going to a polling place, and allows you to access the ballot in your area and then print it out yourself and mail it in independently. I am a member, I really appreciate the ability to independently fill out my ballot when I'm, going into an electoral cycles. Because something about not being able, believing in the secret ballots that we all enjoy in this country. And I wanted to know, I'm sure there's a provision in HR 1 helping allowing that development to continue.
That, Larry, I have not read the minutia of HR 1. I'm broadly familiar with the large pieces of it, but it's a multi-hundred-page piece of legislation. But that would be a question to call your U.S. representative on, whoever represents you in the House, or one of your two senators, although I doubt that Ron Johnson's going to know much about it. But your other senator is it Tina Smith, am I remembering correctly? Your Democratic
Amy
senator?
Klobuchar, right.
Oh, Amy Klobuchar, that's right. I'm mixing up Minnesota and Wisconsin. My apologies. Either one of them could tell you, or their offices.
Right. I just wanted to bring that up as a general information for those who aren't aware of, those of us who have certain challenges in life.
Yeah, well, you did a fine job of it, Larry. Larry, thank you very much. I appreciate the call, and thanks for listening to AM 950 there in Minneapolis. Morris in Long Beach, California. Hey, Morris, what's up?
The big blue wave is still rolling, everybody. The big blue wave. You've got 5 GOP senators that are not going to run for re-election next year. Is that right, Professor Hartmann?
Yeah, we just had a new announcement. What was it? Roy Blunt of Missouri, as I recall, announced yesterday or the day before that he's not going to run?
Yeah, he was one of them. These guys are walking away from power. And you know why? You see, the Republicans, in my opinion, they don't have a platform. You know how they roll? This is how the Republicans roll. They roll with subliminal racist messaging. They exploit people's angers and fears with a mean-spirited tone. And that's just not going to cut it no more. And then they really went over the cliff. Let me tell you when they went over the cliff. You got 60% of the Republican Party favored what Mr. Biden is doing with the rescue plan, right? And they didn't have one Republican, not one, vote for it. These guys are in trouble. Now, that's why I called you, Professor. But I want to talk to you about this, that George Floyd thing that's going on. Do you know that they quizzed the jurors? Like, have you ever been to a protest? Did you hold a sign? What did the sign say? Right. That kind of thing. Now, watch this.
Well, they have not yet quizzed those jurors. There is a jury questionnaire. Or maybe I'm wrong about this, Morris, but my understanding was that the jury questionnaire included questions like that, and that was one of the things that was being debated or fought by the attorneys on both sides. But maybe they've actually polled the jury up. But I thought they had not yet impaneled a jury.
Well, they haven't. I'm not going to say they've impaneled them. I'm saying they're quizzing them. And my point that I'm trying to drive to is we could do the same thing we should do the same thing with our police officers. All police officers in America should be vetted. If we can vet the goddamn National Guard, we can vet the police department. Now, we're going to find out a whole lot of stuff after this insurrection went down. We're finding out that the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and all these other guys, they tie in to law enforcement. Not so much for legitimacy, right, to kill people, but to find out the tactics and whatnot. So we got to stop that right there. So just go on and vet the police, and when politicians are running, particularly Democrats, you say you're with us, then talk like that. That shouldn't offend nobody. And, Professor, please do this for me. Please do this for me. I'll make a donation to your program. Find me one famous white victim that is of a police shooting or killing in this country, just one famous one, and I'll be good to go, because I can tell you books with like 5,000 names. In our generation, you can count 10 and even 30 about it. I'm just looking for one white guy. That's it. Yeah. And thank you for this time.
Yeah. I don't have that name for you, Morris. I do not have that name for you. And when you said that the Republicans don't have a platform, you are absolutely right. In 2020, the Republican Party did not literally, and in my lifetime, this has never happened. They literally did not put up a platform. None. They just basically, whatever Donald Trump says, that's what we believe. And I find that insane, bizarre. It's just incredible. Mike in Bailey, Colorado. Thank you, Morris, by the way. Mike in Bailey, Colorado. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Howdy, Tom. Hey, I'm really hoping H.R. 1 does pass, but I'm already seeing how the Republicans are doing a workaround. I didn't pay attention to when Kentucky announced how if you insulting a police officer, law enforcement officer, is now going to be a crime. But now Tennessee has now introduced and is passing where they're redefining misdemeanors as felonies. Misdemeanors were like if you're out in a protest and let's say you have a sign and the police surge forward and your sign hits their helmet, you can be arrested and convicted of a felony. And
well, you could already. They would just call it battery. They would say that that's assault on a police officer.
Well,
what am I missing?
I'm saying if you're just standing still and they surge into you and you touch them in any way, it can be defined as a felony. Doing the same thing with how they're defining a riot. It's very subjective, and they're increasing it into felonies. So once you're convicted, you lose your voting rights permanently.
Yeah, amazing, Mike. This is the modern day extension of Richard Nixon's Law and Order campaign, and which put millions of people in jail. Yeah, and it's nothing more than a naked attempt to suppress dissent. We'll be right back.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, not a chance. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Ed, whoops, there we go. Ed in Redondo Beach, California. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Well, hey, good day to you. I want to circle back to your disagreement with Louise about whether it's power or money that motivates Trump. And I would say that it's neither and both. And what I mean by that is that both of those are fields of competition in which we award prestige in our society, along with the media, entertainment being a third one. And what really motivates Trump isn't money or power or anything. It's his narcissism. It's being the biggest guy in any room.
So it's status.
It's status, exactly. And those are just currencies of status, and different currencies of status. And so in the end, it's not that he wants money or he wants power. He wants to be the guy that has all the oxygen in the room.
Right, and to go back to some of our conversations with Dr. Justin Frank, the psychiatrist and professor of psychiatry at George Washington in D.C., and the author of Trump on the Couch, a lot of this goes back to Trump's childhood, where he felt completely unloved. During the school year, his parents shipped him off to a private prep school, a private boarding school that pretended it was a military academy, that had uniforms and stuff, but it wasn't actually part of the military. And then during the summers when he came home, his mother went to Scotland without him. And so he was like raised by nobody except during the summer. His father was there, but he had a nanny and he had housekeepers and all this kind of stuff. But this is a guy who has got such a deep hole in his soul, such an empty space where most of us have some recollection of having been loved and nurtured and looked out for as children. His hole, that hole in his heart is so deep, you can't fill it. There's not enough love in the world to fill it.
In the end, he's just a sad little boy, and which is really very pathetic in a way. If you want to, have an
same was
image
true of Hitler, by the way.
No, this is true. This is true. If you want to have an image of Trump in hell, though, go back to that correspondence dinner where Obama made him the butt of a lot of jokes.
I was there.
But here's the kicker: is that the next day he didn't even get to seize control of the news cycle again by lashing back or anything, because the next day the news was full of the death of bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, right. And so he was belittled. And then he had no chance to even say anything back because.
Did you see the story about Trump in New York City day before yesterday, or maybe it was yesterday? I guess he pulled up at Trump Tower in a limousine, and got out, and across the street everybody knew he was coming, right? So across the street there was a whole bunch of press positioned there. And he got out of the car, and in the New York Times it says, and he waved to his one lone supporter. There was literally one guy standing there with like a Trump sign or something, who was like, "Yay, Trump is here." And I'm guessing he was going for a meeting with his bookkeeping people, because they're now subpoenaing all these records. I mean, they're going to nail him to the wall for tax evasion and bank fraud. I don't see how he's going to get out of this. It's amazing. Ed, thanks for the call. It's great to hear from you, and I appreciate, it's always nice to hear from you. I appreciate the call. We'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, the True People's Radio. The Hidden History of Monopoly tells how Robert Bork, that guy from the Reagan era, transformed corporate America and destroyed the American dream. So John Kasich was recently on CNN talking about how Democrats need to be listening to rural America, words to that effect. No, I think Democrats need to be talking to rural America and reminding rural America that it was a Democratic president that got them Social Security. It was a Democratic president that brought electricity to rural America, the RTA through, or the REA rather through the Franklin Roosevelt administration. It was the Democratic Party who brought phones to rural America. It was the Democratic Party that brought Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and public education to rural America, subsidized all those things. Democrats don't need to be listening to rural America. They need to be talking to rural America. There's over 1,500 right-wing radio stations in rural America talking smack all the time, 24/7, and none in rural America carrying a progressive message. That's what Democrats need to be paying attention to. You can check out our new video on this over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Talk media for the rest of us. And picking up your phone calls. Carol in Pontiac, Michigan. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Okay, hold on. I had to switch off from my speakerphone. This is for the caller earlier that was quoting, that said basically that Trump was the only president that has never taken his wages. And actually, it happened twice prior. Herbert Hoover
JFK didn't, right?
And JFK did. And to say that then he donated his, to the Treasury, the housing, or whatever, but that they cut 10% of $1 billion program off those programs. So his $100,000 is a penny in pocket.
Right. Plus, he took a tax break. he took a tax deduction for that donation, assuming that he made the donation. I still haven't seen the receipts, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
It doesn't get accepted. It goes to the general funds, but we haven't seen the canceled checks. That's correct.
Yeah.
And there was a woman earlier, Ronnie, about her mother. She needs to tell her brothers and sisters that are Fox people, just tell her mother she needs to be vaccinated.
Well, and in addition to that, they need to get somebody in her house and go to on the TV set to the child access provision. You can block channels for people and block Fox for a couple of months and let her mother kind of recover from her haze. Let her watch. I mean, there's plenty of other networks out there that, well, God, then she'll end up with OAN or something. But go ahead.
Political information, she could go to someone else. That's not as
CNN,
harsh, except for
MSNBC.
we got Newsmax on ours, which is even worse than Fox.
Yeah, well, you could block that too. But the way to do it is using that child. Yeah, I mean, I tweeted to Sling once. Can I get Fox? Can I get Fox taken off my TV set? And they were like, no. But it turns out that with the child controls, you can actually do that. So that's the way to do it. Carol, thank you very much for the call. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate it. Rob in Seattle. Hey, Rob, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I was calling up in response that what Ronnie was saying earlier really moved me because I know what it's like to have a family member that lives in that Fox News bubble.
Tell me about it.
I have 5 sisters and I have 2 brothers, and she lives in a community, goes to a very conservative church, and listens to her husband most of the time.
This is one of your sisters.
And yes, this is one of my sisters. My younger sister, who lives in Portland, of all people, voted for Trump, and that's a whole nother story. But this one sister was always the sweet one, the kind one, still is, very bright, very intelligent. And it's so hard because the hardest part to me is she denied our own mothers being an immigrant. And she was born in Panama herself. And it was so hard dealing with her and trying to talk her out of this cult she's under, that our mother was an immigrant. How can you follow someone who was so hateful towards immigrants? I just don't understand it, sis. It was tough. Still is. I mean, I haven't talked to her in about 4 years.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Rob. Yeah, politics should not tear families apart. I have a couple of cousins who are, well, I have one cousin in particular who's very right wing, and he posts on Facebook, but I just don't engage with him about those things. Actually, he's the son of one of my cousins. I don't see any point in picking political fights with family members, but when it becomes like a culture thing, it becomes systemic. When they're like, it permeates. When they're like your mother. I mean, that's got to be really rough, Rob. Rob, I don't have any glib response to you other than just to say I feel for you.
All right. Well, thanks, Tom. We think about her all the time. My other sisters are in contact with her more often. So she's got some family help trying to bring her back, so to speak, but it's really tough, but she has so many health issues on top of everything else, so.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Back in the 80s, there was these cult deprogrammers, when people are, actually during the 60s and 70s, I guess it was, when young people were joining the Moonies and they were joining the Hare Krishnas. And I think the Hare Krishnas were a little less toxic cult than the Moonies, but they were actually kidnapping people out of these cults and deprogramming them and stuff like that.
I remember that stuff, yes.
We need some, if there was a national organization that offered deprogramming services to people who had been swept up into the wild conspiracy theories, the earth is flat stuff. This woman who published this piece in this op-ed, it's kind of gone viral in, I believe it was an Idaho newspaper, saying that humans and dinosaurs were on the earth at the same time, and I've got proof. And I mean, there are people who need help. Rob, I'm sorry to hear about your family. Thank you for the call and for validating and your sympathies to our earlier caller, Ronnie, who's dealing with this with her mother. It's got to be tough. We'll be back. Stick around. The Thom Hartmann program continues after this break.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code Tom. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code Tom. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code Tom. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code Tom.
We say fight back!
It's that time of the year again. Free Speech TV needs your help to continue broadcasting. And so please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is a really important part of the American media landscape. You're not going to find good progressive television pretty much anywhere else. You might find one or two shows here and there on other networks, but here we have an entire network of good, solid, progressive programming from hard news, you know, as Amy Goodman presents, and also Randy Rhodes and a lot of the other programs present, you know, here's the details, here's the facts. I try to do that as well, although, you know, not with the depth of reporting that you see over on Democracy Now! To issues of the day, there's a number of great programs on Free Speech TV that delve into specific issues and that have a specific focus. To opinion, which is, you know, kind of my realm, which is, okay, here's the news and here's why it's important. Here's what I think about it. Here's what other people are saying about it. Here's how it impacts our lives. And by the way, what's your opinion of it? Give us a call. I mean, that's essentially my program. And so there's this whole spectrum of programming on Free Speech TV that, generally speaking, you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, you know, we've got the call-in, the kind of cool call-in stuff that you see on C-SPAN. We've got the opinion shows that you'll see on other networks, only with a solid progressive point of view rather than, you know, the friendly corporatist, it's okay for General Electric kind of thing. And solid news, all right here. That's worth something, isn't it? Isn't that worth supporting? I think it is. I've been supporting Free Speech TV for years. I think you should too. We provided this program, our program, for free to Free Speech TV for years too. I mean, this is such an important network. Okay, this is also the Grow Free Speech TV week. And one of the things that we're really trying to do here on the network, or I shouldn't say we, because I'm, you know, I provide a program to Free Speech TV, but I don't work for the network. I'm not employed by them. But the folks who do work for the network, or who are the network, you know, they're the heart and soul of it. One of their missions, one of their absolute goals, and I'm so pleased to hear it, is to expand the number of viewers. And the first and most straightforward and frankly easiest way to do that is to have the viewers that we have right now, which is you, reach out to your network of friends and family and acquaintances and people who may just randomly read your social media posts and tell them about Free Speech TV. Point them to freespeech.org, because on that website people will find where they can find all the rest of Free Speech TV. So it's Grow Free Speech TV Week, and you are now designated as Free Speech TV's official publicist. Please help out. With a contribution today, with a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, there's the webcam cover or the a new tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get your choice between the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV logoed face masks. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box. This is new. We've never offered this before, and it's just perfectly timed for the spring. It's a wildflower seed pack, a windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and a pair of Free Speech TV logo glasses, sunglasses. Sweet, huh? Or, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt. Summer is coming, and if you're committed to being an evangelist for Free Speech TV, this is a great tool. It turns you into a billboard for Free Speech TV. I realize, not everybody wants to do that, but there are folks who like to do that, who like, and hopefully you're one of them, who would like to be, you're in the park and somebody comes up and says, okay, well, tell me about Free Speech TV. And of course, with a $120 gift, you can get an autographed copy of my book, my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, which is, I think, one of the most important books I've written. With a $240 gift, you can join us for a meet and greet with Tom. With or you can get the 2-book set, The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. All of the books, all the Thom Hartmann books that we offer here are autographed by the author. That would be me. And with a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box Set, the Thom Hartmann bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the Free Speech TV hat, the sunglasses, and my book on the hidden history of American oligarchy. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to resume these this fall. There's the in-person meet and greet, and so, get in line. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Come on, this network has to have some value to you, right? $5 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. It has to have some value. Please call now and become a contributor if you never have, and make those monthly contributions if you can. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Wow, looking at the Financial Times, this amazing story about this Chinese espionage campaign that was, there were 4 specific vulnerabilities in the Microsoft Exchange server software or system, or I don't know the exact proper technical term here, but basically it allowed Chinese hackers to get inside your email if you're using a Microsoft Exchange server. This was revealed last week, and now criminal gangs are jumping into the act now that they know how to get into people's email. And it has turned into an international, well, this is the first paragraph from the Financial Times. It, quote, has escalated into a devastating global hacking free-for-all that is claiming tens of thousands of business and public sector victims. So, scary stuff. What I wanted to talk about in this hour, and we can continue the conversation, in particular, the what I find absolutely fascinating is this idea of what is Trump actually trying to pull off? Louise and I were just talking about this a minute ago. I mentioned in the first hour that she was saying she thinks he wants power. I was saying I think he wants money. I think he's always been motivated primarily by money. We've had a number of callers say could be both, could be different dimensions of each. I think that's all true. But she's of the opinion that he's trying to make a political comeback, that he wants to be president in 4 years, or at least wants to be able to swing the party. I mean, he's no doubt, and I think she's probably right to a large extent in this. He remembers when he had the power over Bill Barr to say, stop the investigation into me, stop the investigation into Paul Manafort or Roger Stone, stop the prosecutions. He was in control of the criminal justice system that is now coming after him. And he wants that control back. And now, and then to my argument, he's also now saying that he wants all the money. The Republican Party is a billion-dollar corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation. And he wants that money. And frankly, I think it's beyond that. I think he needs that money. I think he is about as bankrupt as you can get. I think he's right back where he was in 1996 when he had to bankrupt 6 of his companies. I think it was 96. It was somewhere in that time period. So what's going on here? I don't know. But I think even the bigger question is what is this going to do to the Republican Party? Does this, I mean, typically in the off-year elections, which would be 2022, next year, the party that is out of power gains seat in the House and Senate. That's usually what happens. Occasionally it doesn't happen, but that typically is what happens. And when it doesn't happen, it's usually because there's a reason. I think Donald Trump might be the reason this time that the Republicans don't gain seats. I mean, we'll see. Right? Don't count your chickens and all that. And don't jinx things by bragging prematurely. I'm very much trying not to do that. We'll see. But where is the GOP going to go? What kind of party are they going to be? Can they continue to be both the party of fat cats, billionaires, and corporations, and the party of racists and misogynists and xenophobes? I get it that there's a lot of overlap there. Almost all the really, truly rich people in America are white men. And the vast majority of political power in this country is held in the hands of white men. So there's your overlap. But where are they going to go with it? I don't have a crystal ball on this one. I have opinions. And my opinion is that the Republican Party is on the verge of going the way of the Whigs and the Federalists. Twice in the history of America, the conservative party has gone down in flames and been replaced by a whole brand new party. After the War of 1812, it was the Federalists, John Adams' party. And John Adams got trounced by Jefferson in the election of 1800, which began the disintegration of the Federalists. And after the War of 1812, that was it. By 1815, the Federalists, I mean, they were still around and they still had a lot of them were elected to power, but by the 1830s, they were gone, completely gone. Replaced by the Whigs, W-H-I-G party. And then the Whigs were replaced in the 1850s by the Republican Party, today's Republican Party. So is Donald Trump going to kill the Republican Party? And I think that's an open question right now. Anyhow, I mentioned at the beginning of the program in the first hour that I wanted to share with you this astonishing new study, this research into what happens in states that legalize marijuana. And it's mind-boggling. David Sirota did a piece on this with his newsletter, The Daily Poster, and I'm pretty sure it's one of his public ones. Yeah, you can see it over at his website. I think it's dailyposter.com. And it's titled "Ending the Drug War is Good for Workers." And what they found was that, and quoting from David, recreational cannabis laws appear to lower work-related injuries and disabilities to such an extent that states have seen a 20% reduction in workman's comp claims after legalizing adult use cannabis. Now, why would that be? Why is it that we're seeing a 20% drop in some states in workers' compensation claims after they legalize marijuana? There's a number of different theories about this, but it appears to be that what's happening is that, in fact, this is from the study. This one scientist, his name is Abouk, A-B-O-U-K. I'm missing his first name. Rahi Abouk. He was the co-author of the study. David Sirota interviewed him, and from that interview, here's what he said. He said, given that cannabis is used as a pain medication, it's a good substitute for opioids. If people use cannabis, we might be getting rid of some of the negative labor market outcomes of opioids. That's pretty mind-boggling. I mean, the last year that we have statistics for is 2018. We collectively, society, paid $100 billion in workman's comp claims. And now what we're finding is you can cut that by a fifth simply by making medical marijuana or recreational marijuana specifically available to people so that they can self-medicate for their pain. And they can go back to being productive, or they can maintain their productive status in the workforce. I just find that extraordinary. On average, states that have passed recreational marijuana laws saw a 5.4% decrease in workplace injuries and a 6.2% reduction in reports of work-limiting disabilities. So it's not just that people using it as a painkiller allows them to claim disability. It's that it's such an effective painkiller that they're injuring themselves at work less often, presumably because, you can still, it's like when you take opiates, say you've got a back pain and you take a narcotic and then you pick up a box, you're so numb to pain that you don't realize that that box is going to make your back even worse. It's going to further injure you. Normally your body would send you signals going, ouch, ouch, but that's shut down. Well, using marijuana as pain treatment doesn't stop those signals. They're still there. It's just that the pain, it doesn't seem as bothersome. I have noticed this myself. I've had back pain my entire life, or since I broke my back skydiving when I was 19 years old. And instead, it allows you to kind of notice that pain and go, oh, look at that, but not be like overwhelmed by it, which is a big deal. So I just found this study fascinating, and I wanted to share it with you. And I think it's another good reason why, and I'm very hopeful that this is going to happen, that sometime in the next year or three, the Biden administration is going to end the scheduling of marijuana as a good-for-nothing drug, basically, as a narcotic. It needs to be done.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And we need to get more states on board with this, which raises the question, what's with the Republican opposition to this? Why are Republicans opposed to legalizing marijuana? And welcome back. Joseph in Gilbert, Arizona. Hey, Joseph, thanks for calling, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I'm calling about Ronnie, and, it was really sad to hear, but one way I think maybe she could convince her mom and her family is that some of the first people to get the vaccines were members of Congress, President Trump, and President Biden. And usually if powerful people like that are taking the vaccine, that usually means it's going to work.
Here's the problem, Joseph. The fact that Donald Trump and his wife Melania both took the vaccine while he was still in the White House, before January 20th, was never, to the best of my knowledge, reported in any of the right-wing media. It's not well known. We just learned about it 5 or 6 days ago.
Well, maybe she could tell her mother that now.
Yeah. Well, and find a story to that effect and print it out and put it under her nose and because Trump, he thought he was immune because he had the disease, and he still got the vaccine.
Sure, I would, and I am next week. But the thing about like watching Fox or watching these any news channels is, depending on the channel, there's going to be a bias. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and you should probably watch more than one point of view.
I don't disagree. And typically the bias doesn't show up in distorted statements. It shows up in missing data.
Yes. That's why one of the reasons why I watch your show. And another reason is because your network, I believe, is the only one that has call-in, where people can actually call in and give their opinion of the, say, major news networks.
Yeah, C-SPAN does too, but that's not, it's kind of a strange duck. But yeah, good point. Joseph, thank you. And thanks for the kind words. Appreciate the call. Steve in Topanga, California. Hey, Steve, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's up?
Good morning. Call me a cynic, Tom, but I think that they're purposely trying to put out information that the vaccine's not working because, Biden's getting a lot of success.
You're talking about Fox News?
Yeah, and he's getting a lot of success. He's going to cure the pandemic, and people are going to see the success. And the Republicans, they can't have that. That's not good. So they want to keep people from doing it, so we can't get to herd immunity.
So let me get this straight. You're suggesting, Steve, that the billionaires who own Fox News and or the management of Fox News actually want more Americans to die because it will hurt Joe Biden politically. Is that your suggestion?
I'm a cynic, but yes, exactly. And you look at what Mitch McConnell and the Republicans caucused when Obama was first elected that first night. We're going to oppose all his legislation. We're going to make him a failure. Right. And now they're seeing this happen with Biden, and he's having all this success. They can't have that. So they're going to do whatever. So what? We kill 1 million more people. It doesn't matter. We've already, Trump's already killed 500,000, or about. It's not an issue to them, is what I'm saying. And I'm cynical about it.
I totally get it.
And I
totally get it. And that dinner, by the way. Yeah, thank you, Steve. And yeah, me too. And thanks for the call. I will take it the minute it's available. That dinner was held at the Caucus Room Restaurant, which has since gone out of business in Washington, D.C., and it was on the evening of January 20th, 2009. If you want to Google it, it's a pretty shocking story. We'll be right back. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. 21 minutes past the hour. I'm still just amazed by this reporting on essentially the medical use of recreational marijuana. It just astonishes me. Kent in Hempstead, North Carolina. Hey, Kent, what's on your mind today?
Well, I had a basic question for you, Tom. With all the legislation in process of restricting voting and hours and polling places and shutting off Sunday voting, isn't the withholding of food and or water from people that are bound to be stuck standing in line to vote, isn't that a violation of a basic civil right? It just seems to me, not only does it border on cruelty, I mean, you wouldn't do that to a kid or a dog, but to inflict that kind of situation on people, you know, especially older people that are bound to be going to stand in line. And it's Republicans and Democrats that'll be standing in those lines. It just seems like an act of cruelty that goes beyond any perceived fake fraud that the Republicans keep squawking about.
I agree, Kent. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is there any kind of violation of civil rights involved with that?
I don't think so. But you know, I don't see a legal argument that you could make on that. And the argument that the guy, you know, that the Republicans in the Georgia legislature are making is that delivering that pizza or that glass or that slice of pizza or that bottle of water is in effect a bribe. You're not supposed to give things of value to people in exchange for their vote. And I mean, that's a crime. And so they're basically extending that crime to include food while you're in line. You can't pass out campaign literature, for example, when people are in line. But I think the larger question, and it's the one that your question touches on, and it was the essential question when I raised this in the first hour of the program, and I don't think I fleshed it out well or did a good job of laying it out, is when Republicans, if Republicans succeed in making it harder to vote right across the board, by cutting back the number of hours of days of early voting, the number of hours for voting itself, making it harder to vote by mail, it seems to me that the consequence of that is going to be that the really and truly motivated voters, the really excited voters, the really cranked up voters, they're going to push through that stuff. They're going to still stand in line for 10 hours. They're going to do whatever it damn well takes to get their vote registered. And what's going to be lost are not necessarily black or white or rich or poor or Hispanic or Republican or Democrat. What's going to be lost are the voters who are like, you know, I could go. I'm not that enthusiastic. And frankly, it certainly appears to me that while, yes, there is a hardcore, very enthusiastic Republican base for right-wing crackpot candidates, you know, the kind of the QAnon base, as it were, I think the real active and motivated political party in America right now is no longer the Republican Party, it's the Democratic Party. And, you know, it was the Republican Party from the Gingrich Revolution until recently, but now it's the Democrats. And so I think it's entirely possible that these restrictions Republicans are putting into place are going to cut the Republican vote more than they're going to cut the Democratic vote, because the Democrats are sufficiently motivated that they'll simply figure out how to get around it. They will show up on those fewer days, and they will wait in the longer lines, and they will tolerate whatever kind of crap the Republicans are going to throw at them to get their votes registered. So, you know, time will tell.
That's what Republicans didn't learn in 2020 was that motivated Democrats and people that are independent, which I'm independent, they're willing to do anything to stand there to get the vote. Especially if
I'm with
you can't or you're not supposed to or we don't want you to. So they basically misjudge human nature. Tell me I can't do something, I'm all over it. So anyway,
yeah, thank you, Ken. I think you're absolutely right. Eric in Erie, Pennsylvania. Hey, Eric, what's up?
Hey, good afternoon, Tom. To answer your question in a very direct way, why is the GOP so against legalization and decriminalization of marijuana? It is because of the market share of the Sacklers and people like them. Every time there's a new wonder drug and a massive boom, market share is going to disappear.
It's big pharma, in other words.
Yeah, and also, Tom, the thing you were talking about in terms of the correlation to workers' comp incidents and stuff, there's also the fact that the opioids are it's a very short-acting drug in terms of time span. So the period of time during which the user is, you know, quote-unquote high, you know, mentally having their faculties adjusted, also goes in line with the therapeutic time, whereas cannabis, it's a longer extended therapeutic period and the high is worn off.
Right, yeah. I think the half-life for THC is like 16 or 18 hours, something like that. And for a lot of these narcotics, it's 3 hours.
Oxycontin, it's 90 minutes.
Yeah, amazing. Excuse me, Eric, thank you very much for the call. I think you're absolutely right. It hadn't even occurred to me, and I don't know why it didn't.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It should have been obvious. You know, if legal marijuana reduces painkiller use, of course the big pharmaceutical lobbies who own the Republican Party are going to be all upset. It's that time of the year again. Free Speech TV needs your help to continue broadcasting. And so please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV is a really important part of the American media landscape. You're not going to find good progressive television pretty much anywhere else. You might find one or two shows here and there on other networks, but here we have an entire network of good, solid, progressive programming from hard news, you know, as Amy Goodman presents, and also Randy Rhodes and a lot of the other programs present, you know, here's the details, here's the facts. I try to do that as well, although, you know, not with the depth of reporting that you see over on Democracy Now! To issues of the day, there's a number of great programs on Free Speech TV that delve into specific issues and that have a specific focus, to opinion, which is, you know, kind of my realm, which is, okay, here's the news and here's why it's important. Here's what I think about it. Here's what other people are saying about it. Here's how it impacts our lives. And by the way, what's your opinion of it? Give us a call. I mean, that's essentially my program. And so there's this whole spectrum of programming on Free Speech TV that, generally speaking, you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, you know, we've got the call-in, the kind of cool call-in stuff that you see on C-SPAN. We've got the opinion shows that you'll see on other networks, only with a solid progressive point of view rather than, you know, the friendly corporatist, it's okay for General Electric kind of thing. And solid news, all right here. That's worth something, isn't it? Isn't that worth supporting? I think it is. I've been supporting Free Speech TV for years. I think you should too. We provided this program, our program, for free to Free Speech TV for years too. I mean, this is such an important network. Okay, this is also the Grow Free Speech TV week. And one of the things that we're really trying to do here on the network, or I shouldn't say we, because I'm, you know, I provide a program to Free Speech TV, but I don't work for the network. I'm not employed by them. But the folks who do work for the network, or who are the network, you know, they're the heart and soul of it. One of their missions, one of their absolute goals, and I'm so pleased to hear it, is to expand the number of viewers. And the first and most straightforward and frankly easiest way to do that is to have the viewers that we have right now, which is you, reach out to your network of friends and family and acquaintances and people who may just randomly read your social media posts and tell them about Free Speech TV. Point them to freespeech.org, because on that website people will find where they can find all the rest of Free Speech TV. So it's Grow Free Speech TV week, and you are now designated as Free Speech TV's official publicist. Please help out. With a contribution today, with a $20 gift, you get the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the Free Speech TV Wildflower Seed Pack. With a $50 gift, there's the webcam cover or the a new tote bag. With a $75 gift, you get your choice between the official Thom Hartmann Program mug or the official Free Speech TV hat. With a $100 gift, you get a set of 2 Free Speech TV logoed face masks. With a $120 gift, there's the Grow Social Change box. This is new. We've never offered this before, and it's just perfectly timed for the spring. It's a wildflower seed pack, a windowsill herb garden, the new tote bag, and a pair of Free Speech TV logo glasses, sunglasses. Sweet, huh? Or, that's with a $120 gift, or you can get the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt. Summer is coming, and if you're committed to being an evangelist for Free Speech TV, this is a great tool. It turns you into a billboard for Free Speech TV. I realize, not everybody wants to do that, but there are folks who like to do that, who like, and hopefully you're one of them, who would like to be, you're in the park and somebody comes up and says, okay, well, tell me about Free Speech TV. And of course, with a $120 gift, you can get an autographed copy of my book, my newest book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, which is, I think, one of the most important books I've written. With a $240 gift, you can join us for a meet and greet with Tom. Or you can get the two-book set, The Hidden History of Monopolies and The Hidden History of Oligarchy. All of the books, all the Thom Hartmann books that we offer here are autographed by the author. That would be me. And with a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University Spring Box Set, the Thom Hartmann bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the seeds, the herb garden, the tote bag, the hat, the Free Speech TV hat, the sunglasses, and my book on the hidden history of American oligarchy. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to resume these this fall. There's the in-person meet and greet, and so, get in line. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Come on, this network has to have some value to you, right? $5 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. It has to have some value. Please call now and become a contributor if you never have, and make those monthly contributions if you can. Thank you. The Hidden History of the War on Voting tells how the GOP has been stealing elections for decades and will again this year unless we stop them. So we have a new video over at ThomHartmann.com for people who are supporters of our program. And it gets into the 2016 election and what lessons we can draw from that for the 2020 election. For example, in 2016, according to the exit polls, and all we have to look at right now are pre-polls, but the exit polls, these are the actual voters who are being asked. In 2016, in Florida, Hillary Clinton, according to the exit polls, beat Donald Trump 47.7 to 46.4. According to the exit polls in 2016 in North Carolina, Hillary Clinton beat Trump 48.6 to 46.5%. In Pennsylvania, according to the exit polls, Hillary Clinton beat Trump 50.5% to Trump's 46.1%. And in Wisconsin, she beat Trump 48.2% to 44.3%. And yet all four of those states gave their electoral votes the official win to Donald Trump. Why is that? I lay it all out. You can check it out over at ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour of the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for we the people of the United States of America. Kevin in Long Beach. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good. What's
up? I just wanted to mention that when you were talking about Trump's wealth, if everybody remembers when he was in that debate, the first in 2016, he stood on the stage and says, "Oh, I'm rich, I'm so rich. I'm worth $10 billion.
I remember.
Now, if anybody tracked this man back before he was ever running for president, everybody knew what kind of wealth he really had. And number two is the one guy that comes on MSNBC actually went and worked for Bloomberg's campaign. He was sued by Trump. I don't know how many years back. But because he was sued by Trump, he got to see Trump's taxes.
Right.
And he said from the best he could tell, he was probably worth only about $250 million at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what Trump said, the exact quote. Quote, "So I have a total net worth, and now with the increase, it'll be well over $10 billion. But here, a total net worth, not assets, not a net worth, after all debt, after all expenses, the greatest assets, Trump Tower," and then he goes through and lists a bunch of his properties, many other places all over the world. So the total is $8,737,540. And as he's saying that, he's waving this piece of paper Turns out the piece of
Right.
paper had nothing to do with anything, and he just pulled that number out of his backside, as he often does. You know, I mean, this is a guy
Yeah,
who lied, on average 30 times a day.
Right. And they, and going way back when he a bunch of those Russians were buying his condos and his buildings.
Right.
I mean,
At
it was just
inflated
like
prices.
it was just like a train coming there with people
And
putting
the Saudis
money
too.
down for that.
Saudis bought a
that
whole
too.
floor.
They have offices, I think, even in the Trump Tower that he lives in New York, or used to live in New York. They have a whole floor of offices or something like that. I've even been told.
Yeah, they've got a whole floor. I don't know if it's residential or office space, but and I assume that they still have it. But yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Kevin. And it's kind of sad.
And these golf courses and resorts, they're not making money.
No, they're not now. They'll start making money later this year. But and I think the bridge that has gotten him through is the money he's been able to steal from his inaugural fund and from his donors. Yep. I mean, it's hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone into his pocket. And we know that Jared and Donald started an LLC that took almost $600 million out of the $1.3 billion that he raised in the 4 years that he was president, for his reelection bid. And nobody knows exactly where that money went. Obviously, some of it was spent on campaigning and media, but how much of it, where to go, nobody knows. So it's pretty strange.
The dollar is everything to him. That's first.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that's his first and enduring love. Kevin, thank you for the call. Diana in Preston, Idaho. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to add something to money, power, and one more thing.
Okay.
Sex.
Oh, do you think that Donald Trump pursues, like his raping E. Jean Carroll? They say that rape it's not so much out of a sexual urge as it is out of a domination or power urge. So could we categorize that as a subset of this, or do you think that, that he's actually just a horny guy and he's using his money to?
It goes way beyond that, Tom. I'm surprised a lot more people haven't come forward about it. But I worked in the Nevada, after living and working in the Nevada casinos for 39 years, we learned to keep our mouths shut no matter what. And I'm still a little uncomfortable talking about, my experiences there. But my mouth was shut, but my eyes and ears were always open. I worked mainly in gaming, and we had a lot of, sexual perverts come through the hotel. I won't name names, but it's absolutely unbelievable. And when I found out when I heard, that Trump was going to be running during, that year before, I was watching the news a lot and thinking, and called friends of mine and stuff that knew stuff, And we all said, oh, he'll never make it. He'll never make it. And I said, I don't know. Stranger things have happened. But I was watching. I started really watching the news then, which I had never really done before in my life. I'd listened to you. You were free speech was about it for me. So I started listening to a few shows, including Rachel. And one time, it was during, when they were running for the nomination, she said, you heard of the D.C. Madam, right? The D.C. Madam?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Rachel said that the attorney of the D.C. Madam had called her and said he had information about one of the she didn't say Republican. She said he had information about one of the candidates that he felt the American people should know about before they vote. And he said it was definitely sexually related. So I called my friends, and said, who do you think it is? Who do you think it is? And I said, well, it's not Bernie. But so I said, you know who it is. And they all agreed, yeah, it was Trump. So she said she would have that information in about a week. And it's soon. She said she'd have it soon. And in about a week, she came back on the television and said she was still waiting for it. She'd have that information soon. And if anything happened to him, he had told her, if anything happens to me, the information will still go forward. And Rachel
This is
announced
the lawyer
that,
because the D.C. madam at that point was dead.
Yes, yeah, and her mother was too. I mean, we know her, and her mother was too. Both of them were found dead together. And Rachel said at that time that the information that he had told her, the information, even if I come up missing, the information is still going to go forward. And then we listened and we listened and we watched and we watched and we never heard anything else. The story disappeared. He disappeared. Some of my friends even did, computer onto, to Rachel to find out what happened. Never got a response. But, I mean, your one caller said, in the end, he, about him being just a sad little boy. Well, let me tell your caller, in the end, he's not just a sad little boy. He's a monster in disguise. I mean,
yeah.
I'm talking back when he first came to Vegas with Ivana, his first wife, when he was married to her. I mean, he basically got blackballed from from Vegas. And he got back because he put a pile of money on Steve Wynn's desk. It doesn't take much money to buy.
He got
Steve
blackballed
Wynn
because of his bad behavior, because of his sexual behavior, or
yeah, I mean, I don't feel comfortable going into the gory details about it, but yes, oh yeah, I mean, he's terrible, and I'm surprised. And then one of the some person that I was talking to that I met just recently, and I was saying, he's a really bad guy. You guys have no idea how bad this person is. And I started telling her. She said, "That's absolutely false." I said, "I was there. I saw things."
Wow.
And she said, "It's absolutely false because he's trying to protect children that are being sexually trafficked." He said the Democrats are doing. She came up with all.
Oh, this is a QAnon thing. Oh my God.
Yeah. She believes in all that stuff. And when I heard her say he's trying to protect children that are being sexually trafficked, the bottom fell out of my heart. I mean, these people are horrible people. He's a horrible person.
Well, that's when the penny drops. That's when I mean, now there are all these the whole protect the children hashtag now has been hijacked by these crazed right-wing conspiracy nuts who, like the guy who went into the pizza shop in Washington, D.C. and shot up the ceiling, thinking that there were children hiding in the basement when the building didn't even have a basement. I mean, that's how weird it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that. And a lot of people, that I know, I mean, I after spending 39 years in those casinos, I got to meet a lot of people. And I'll tell you what.
I'm guessing you've seen it all.
I hate to say this, Tom, but some of the worst people that came to Vegas were politicians. The most perverted.
No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, money in politics.
The more money they had, Tom, the more perverted they were sexually.
Yeah. Diana, I got to run, but thank you for the call, and thanks for the, I think, the enlightenment. We'll be back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Talk media for the sane left among us. Yes, there's a few of us. Back with your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. MJ in Seattle. Hey, MJ, what's up?
Hey, I really appreciate your talking about how to help people who've been put in a cult with Trump. I've a brother in that situation, and I've been developing something going back to when my political discussions were about global warming, and people didn't want to believe, and they just stop you and say, "Oh, I'm warning, fair warning here. I'm a skeptic or I'm a denier," and I'd say, "Oh, that's I just developed this thing where." And it has to do with your brain. It's got a left side and a right side. The left side relates to dictators and believes in self-interest. That's how you can work on your job. And the right side of the brain sees everything. So, and its main thing is openness, curiosity. So, you start by saying, "Gosh, I wonder what would be like if you didn't believe that." Gosh, I wonder. And I am currently, I can actually talk with people who are being really rude and very harassing. Talking is a metaphor for typing things into Facebook or something, and say, "Wow," and I can still lay out facts, and they don't bristle. It's almost like a little trap door in their brain.
It is. It's actually a technique that Milton Erickson, who was an extraordinarily famous hypnotist, medical hypnotist. He's a psychiatrist who lived in Phoenix, died in the 1960s. And he was one of the three geniuses that Richard Bandler and John Grinder modeled neurolinguistic programming on. And Erickson would put people in trances, or he would use that phrase, "I wonder," as a way of causing people to imagine things that, or to visualize things, to have a thought that they were not prepared to have, that they didn't want to have. And using it exactly the way you're talking about, MJ, it's a very, very powerful strategy or technique to engage a person in a conversation where they don't even realize that it's literally a conversation. In other words, it's going back and forth. It just seems like idle speculation kind of thing, and you're putting that out. I wonder.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead, please.
Your previous speaker about Nevada, about Las Vegas, it made me think, if I had somebody in front of me who said, Donald Trump really wants to save the children, he's really trying to do that, I would sit back and say, I would say to them, I wonder if someone had the awesome power of the presidency of the United States, if I would think that they were going to help children and help, what kinds of bills and programs.
Officers, and the last year we have statistics for is 2017, so we'll use that. 100 police officers were killed by firearms during that year. Now, some were suicides, some were accidental shootings. A few of them were bad guys killing cops. 100. 1,000 of our soldiers all around the world were shot dead in 2017. 1,000. A little more dangerous, apparently, to be a soldier than to be a cop. But apparently, the most dangerous position in the United States is not being a police officer on the front lines. It's not being a soldier on the front lines of combat. It's being a child. School-aged children killed by firearms in 2017. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and James in Seattle. Hey, James, what's up?
Yeah, good day, Tom. The gentleman that was on earlier that called himself a cynic, I'm having a very difficult time with thinking that you would be so naive not to want to agree with him wholeheartedly, that the Republicans will think of themselves as benefiting from the more people that die with the Biden and we don't get herd immunity.
I think that here's the thing, James. The Fox News needs viewers, right? They make most of their money. My understanding is they make much or most of their money on fees from the networks, but ultimately, the network, the cable companies, basically. But ultimately, those cable companies are going to stop carrying their channel if nobody's watching it. They need viewers, and plus they sell product to viewers, or they charge for advertising. So if they're going to make a business decision that is going to cause a large chunk of their viewership to die, that it seems to me totally bizarre. It seems to me like completely counterintuitive. And that's why I'm scratching my head when I hear that, Fox hosts are causing people to be skeptical of the vaccine and causing many senior citizens not to take the vaccine. How does killing off their own people help them? I don't get it.
Well, they're going to modify and appeal more to racists and bring them in. Obviously, the old people are going to die anyway, so they have to have a business plan to modify in order to.
So you see this as Fox's bid to pick up the young white racist, male supremacist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi nationalist vote?
That sounds good. My wife and I, we were just coming back from picking up some groceries, and we said to each other, on Fox News, do they have one gay person, and we couldn't, not that we watch it, but we doubt if that person is there.
Well, they used to have Shepard Smith, and he's gone.
Right. So, I mean, the white racists, there's a lot of white people in this country, and if we just move towards them, it's a good plan. And to think that money, and not that Fox News is the only money, but other money, they really don't care. They're isolated from all this, and whether it's 500,000 that die or 1 million that die. The same rich people made money on the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnamese War. It's money is the root of all evil. I mean,
I get it. I get it. James, you made your point. You made it very well, and I appreciate that. I do want to get at least one and hopefully two more calls in before the end of the show. So thank you very much for the call. Michael in Princeton, Minnesota. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I can't see the Republican Party surviving. I mean, first of all, you got Donald Trump directing the money to him. You got the Trump effect, which they're shedding. I mean, as many as 10,000 in one county in Arizona, 250,000 over a period of a couple days. Then you got the Biden bill that got passed. Then you got the suppression going on in the red states. And the ads that I've seen against that are phenomenal. So I cannot see the Republican Party surviving, at least in the way that they are right now. I don't.
So here's the question then, Michael: do they go the way of the Whigs? I mean, do they literally get replaced by another party, or do they simply go, become a super minority party like they were from 1933 to basically the mid-1980s, and just don't hold power?
I'm expecting that there's going to be a split. I wouldn't be really surprised at all to see a third party.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. We'll see.
They're so divided among themselves.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Michael, thank you. Mary in Greenville, Michigan. Hey, Mary, what's up? Mary? I am not hearing Mary. Okay, there's no Mary. Thank you, Sean, for that confirmation. David in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hey, David, what's up?
Hi. I don't think we're going to have equilibrium until Black Lives Matter or some group like that becomes a political party. Green Party.
Well, what that'll do is split the Democratic Party.
Could do it. What's that?
But that would split the Democratic Party. Just like the Green Party did, on a couple of occasions.
The People's Party in the 19th century merged in with the Democratic Party in the 19th century to give us William Jennings Bryan, and eventually led to FDR.
Yeah, I think you could build that case. Interesting. I think it is a movement right now. I mean, we had a spokesperson from the movement for Black Lives on earlier in the program. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks so much for being with us today. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It really and truly isn't. It's not just a slogan. Democracy requires participation, and that means you. Without you, there is no democracy. So get out there, get active, tag you're it, and spread the word about good progressive media. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and those around you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are Gabi.com. Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance. More info at Gabi.com/Tom. Teeth, Smarter Pet Dental Help. More info at teethhealth.com, code TOM. HelloFresh, delivering fresh ingredients and mouthwatering recipes. More info at hellofresh.com, code TOM. Bowl and Branch, crafted for the common good. More information at bowlandbranch.com, code TOM. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More info at expressvpn.com/Tom. And CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM.
We say fight back!